Ladies and gentlefolk,
We're back.
with another episode
Should we
about a movie we've
Should we
already
try to do
talked
radio
about.
voices the whole time?
No,
Are you sure?
100% sure. Today in this episode, we're going to be talking
Today
about...
in this episode, we're going.
This will be the first time we're talking about the same movie
It's more of like an announcer.
twice. I feel like I'm just more accustomed to announcer voices. I don't listen to the radios. The only voices like that I hear are, and I know I bring this up a lot, but like
Matt
American
Eisman.
Ninja Warrior, like is that kind of voice. So that's all I got to go off of. But anyways, we're going to be talking about Tenet again. This is the first time that we'll be talking about one movie in 2 episodes.
But we're talking about it backwards.
Yep.
You know.
That was pretty convincing. I'm going to play that back and see what you said.
I did something like really offensive. Oh god.
So before we jump into Tenet,
Yeah. I weirdly have a lot of stuff I want to cover.
Me too.
Oh god, this is gonna be a long one.
We thought this one might be shorter. And
Do you want to start with the good first or the bad first?
I thought, okay, before we get into Tenet.
Oh, not Tenet. I'm talking about I have a weirdly lot of stuff to talk about before Tenet.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you meant about Tenet.
No. Actually, weirdly, have nothing to. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, well, you said the
Mhm.
good or the bad
Yep.
first. I mean,
Yep.
So you're taking the reins, even though I was trying to take the reins.
Oh, you were trying to take the reins?
I said, well, before Tenet, and you go, well, okay, good or bad? Like, okay, well, I was going to say some
Not
stuff.
really
but
how I said it. I can't say
Basically
stuff
how you
before
said it.
Tenet?
You can, but you sound like you just want to jump right on into it.
Oh, man.
What do you got for us today, Nate?
I guess we'll start with the good. I wanna re-dabble into Nate's philosophy corner
Oh
that
my
we
gosh.
dabbled into a few weeks ago for the first time. And I want to kind of hear your take on this. Okay, I reached a level of blissful contentment about 3 days ago.
Yep.
And I kind of and what I discovered, and I was very, I mean, I want to say happy, but like, well, content with that. I don't know if this is making any sense, but basically, I was mowing a lawn, right?
You were mowing a lawn.
Yeah.
The way you said that sounded like one word. You said I was mowing a lawn.
Mowing a lawn, yeah.
What's a mowing?
As you do.
M-O-N
W.
M-O-N-A-L-O-N.
What?
Mowing a lawn. That's how it sounded. M-O-N-A-L-O-N.
Or mow in a lawn, like Mo, a guy named Mo.
No, just mowing a lawn.
So I was mowing a lawn.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was about it. I was playing in my headphones. I've been kind of like in this weird place with music lately, where like I feel like I've like listened to the stuff I normally listen to just too much, and I'm kind of done with it for right now. You ever get to that point?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I've been looking for new stuff,
Yep.
and I haven't really found any like new contemporary or like stuff I haven't heard of that I'm all excited about or want to listen to. So I've moved into listening to soundtracks of like movies and different things.
Okay.
And so I mowed the lawn to the entire.
Wait, let me guess.
Oh, you're not
You
going to
said
guess it.
entire, so
Yep.
I was thinking series here.
Why would it
Or,
have to be a series?
I guess you meant the entire soundtrack of a
Yeah.
movie.
Mhm. It's not. It's like an
I would
original
really-
soundtrack, so it's like composed. It's not like
Yeah.
you
I would
a
really,
score, I guess.
Yeah, I would really like to believe it was something along the lines of like Mission Impossible. So you're just on your lawnmower, like going like 10 miles, like 5 miles an hour.
I'm like crawling behind it. No, I guess I'll give you more of a hint if you want to go this route with it. It's much more like peaceful and tranquil. But again, I don't think you're gonna guess it.
Minecraft music.
No, that is very much like me. I love the Minecraft soundtrack, but it was not that.
Well, no, that doesn't
that's
count as a
something that I
proper-
feel like I've listened too much to.
That I don't
listen too much to?
I'm almost afraid to listen to it too much because I'm afraid it's gonna do what you're saying is lose its magic.
Well, I can always go back to it eventually, but like I'll just be like, okay, I'm done. Like I don't want to listen to it.
Yeah,
anymore.
that was not a real guess because you said a movie. So
Actually,
Tranquil.
I was saying I had been, but this is actually not a movie. This is a video game soundtrack.
Oh, you what? Okay,
I was gonna go into talking that I was mentioning it was a video game, but then you cut me off with the
Well, I know, but
guessing. So I was like, okay, motherfucker, I'll let you guess.
Well, I know, but you should have like given me. You shouldn't have said, "Oh, more tranquil." Yeah, that's a narrow down, but you should give me the base of narrowing down is categories, buddy. And you're just like,
tranquil's a category.
you should have said video game because I was gonna guess Up, but
I never would have even thought of Up. That's not. I mean, it's nice, but at the same time, too sad.
and you just start crying. As
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Just go,
That would not be good for me to help me reach my
Your
blissful contentment.
grandfather
my zen.
walks outside his front porch and just sees you like going 3 miles an hour on a lawnmower, like, slowly sobbing. A video game, Tranquil. Okay, so I was joking about Minecraft because it was a video
pretty
game.
close. Tranquil. I mean, that's probably
Then I got nothing. I don't know. I know this sounds really bad. I don't know a lot of
the
video game soundtracks.
Skyrim soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is important because I was only I would say the entire thing, but that's not quite true. I was only listening to the soft open world songs that play when you're just like walking around the woods. That are real, not like the battle ones where it's like
Completely,
"Da-da-da,
yeah,
da-da-da,
completely the same
da-da-da."
as
very similar
mowing
to
the
that.
lawn.
Yeah, yeah.
Completely the same.
Mhm.
Walking around.
But
in
what it
Tranquil
made me
was-
feel like is one of just the random NPCs that you'd walk up to in the game that's
So-
like doing an action indefinitely.
So
like
you felt contentment, and if your entire life had to be mowing a lawn forever, listening to your in-game sounds.
In a weird way, yes. Which it made me kind of realize that, like, because part of it was that, as I would finish a section, it's something that I've done so many times at this point that it's everything's by the numbers, nothing's difficult about it. There's no guessing. It's mowing a lawn. It's never like it was hard to begin with, but it's so second nature that. I don't know, the just simple act of just completing it in a very routine and systematic fashion just made me not happy, but content. And I don't know, I was kind of thinking that I think what made me get into this was that people, I think, search, and myself included, search for happiness in like quick, intense bursts of happiness. Like
So
they'll work all week,
now-
and then they'll go on Saturday, they'll go out and have like a rager, or something like that.
So now we're talking about the definition of happiness. Okay.
Well, it all kind of flows in together, all right? This is Philosophy Corner. But I guess that's kind of my point, is that, like, I think there's something to routine and just the simple pleasure of just doing stuff, nothing necessarily exciting, but just getting little stuff done. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe this is obvious to other people, but I feel like I a little bit discovered it when I was mowing a lawn.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your take on that. If you had that before, if you'd experienced, you know what I mean, kind of.
I actually have something to add to this.
Wow.
Well, one, because I'm very much of like a mental dude. Like I believe if you set your mind
He's
to something,
a mental dude.
if you kind of thing, like it's all like on your
These
mindset.
other plebs out here ain't using their brain. Not like this guy. He's a mental dude.
You know what I mean? Like that. I've always been the person that kind of thinks that if I put my mind to something, that it like kind of your view on the world and how you go about things is very much so based on your mindset.
Yeah, but here's
Regardless
the thing.
of whether you
You're the
believe-
protagonist in Skyrim. I just want to be the NPC.
But guess what? It doesn't matter as long as you're happy. But that's your mindset. I didn't say you have to be protagonist. Just be happy and content in your own mind. You're
No,
good.
yeah,
and
sure.
you found that in doing your routine tasks.
Mhm.
But I agree that like I've found happiness and in contentment of doing regular things. Just being like, when I really think about it, what do I got to worry about? My life be chill.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, right?
My life be like ooh ah. You've never heard that song, bro?
What the fuck is that?
Ooh ah. My life be like.
I have no idea what you're referencing.
Anyways, so let me give you a little bit of what I've been doing, and that's been making me happy. Is something also very just kind of relaxing and not necessarily a task, one with nature, becoming one with nature.
Wow.
I haven't been becoming one with nature. I don't necessarily put it like that.
Boy gets on a barge in the lake once.
No, but I've been going out on my dock
Mm-hmm.
and trying to do this every day, and I've done it for a couple days now, and take some time to like put down my phone,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously I'm so used to having it just on me all the time,
Right.
and I'm still the kind of person that well, I have a lot of people important to me in my life, and if they need to get a hold of me because of an emergency, I don't want to not have it, but I'll put it 50 feet away, so it's not with me, but I can hear it if somebody really needs to get a hold of me or something, and whatever, and not deal with it, and then basically do almost like meditation and breathing on the dock while just looking at the lake, just taking deep breath, because I know this sounds kind of crazy, but I think I was actually listening or hearing about, I've heard about this a lot, but on the Joe Rogan podcast, somebody talking about breath work and how it's good for athletes and stuff, and everybody, but you don't really take a lot of time like the normal person just to focus on your breath. It's just a subconscious thing, and apparently it's really good even for your brain to get that kind of oxygen, taking deep breaths in, deep breaths out, and just actually making it something you focus on for a few minutes every day or every other day, whatever.
Sure.
And man, when I just go out there and just chill and literally just try to, and I try not to approach it try to not think about anything, because when you do that, you always think about something, but more just accepting the thoughts that do come. This is getting real philosophy. You didn't know I was going to go this far into it.
I did not.
But yeah, and but same thing is at a certain point, all the other worries and stresses do just kind of go away, at least for a moment. I just find myself smiling, looking out at the lake and the sun and the trees, and it is awesome. It's awesome. I just can do it without having to sit on a beast, I'm calling your lawnmower a beast to make it sound cooler. You know how motorcyclists call their motorcycles
hog.
hogs or their their beast or whatever, that they're
Yeah. My
okay, it's a lawnmower.
My
It's a
tiny
lawnmower.
push lawnmower.
Oh, it's a push?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
The other lawn is a riding lawnmower, but on that one I'm not tranquil at all. I'm zooming. I'm max speed, 0 turn. There's no tranquil. It's weird when you're pushing. It's slow, the same thing, monotonous. But that's how you can kind of get into it. When you're driving, you're planning turns. I don't know. It's a different thing at all.
On a race car when he's on
I don't
riding.
know why, but when you're on a riding, it just feels like, okay, I'm gonna try to get this done in 5 minutes, as fast as I possibly can. A push mower, you're just this is gonna take.
That was a perfect
while.
time to be able to tell you about that I'm doing, because any other time you would have just made some joke or joked me hardcore, but now I'm I could talk about it because this man is enjoying mowing a lawn and being content about mowing a lawn.
Nah, man, I don't know. I think I've gotten much more nature boy recently. I've been spending a lot more time in the wilderness and on lakes and stuff like that. I mean, just a couple weekends ago, I just stood in the middle of Lake Lanier and just
You stood in the middle of a lake?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you Jesus?
It was shallow enough. I was waist high, but it was 10:30 at night. I don't know. It was this weird thing.
What kind of lake is shallow enough that it's waist high in the middle of it?
Well, okay, so Lanier's really big. It's the biggest lake in Georgia, I'm pretty sure.
So why is that shallow in the middle?
Well, it's not the middle, you know what I mean? I wasn't in the absolute middle of the lake. There are coves and stuff like that, but I was a good little ways away from the shore. I wasn't just standing next to a beach kind of a thing. It just happened to be shallow enough where I could stand. But it was just weird because I was just perfectly standing still, just in the middle, just staring. There was just a nice view. It was just after the twilight hour of the day, and been hanging out and doing stuff. And I was it's weird to be in a lake at night when it's dark. You just feel like things are going to start coming, just like it's weird to be in the ocean at night.
Yeah.
Although I guess not, just because I think sharks do actually try to become more active at night. I think that's a thing. I don't know. I'd always
Did you say at twilight?
Well, right after twilight. So it actually has become dark at this point. It's just not, midnight.
We live in a twilight world.
Wow. Tenet.
And then you respond with, God, you don't even know the response. You really weren't paying attention to this movie.
Yeah,
You
sorry.
got nothing. I don't even remember.
I was thinking about my cool
something about allies
lawnmowing
or something.
still.
We live in a twilight world, and then they respond with something. I don't know.
I don't know either. Anyway,
well, that's cool.
that was cool. Yeah. But I think now I have to get into the bad territory.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
what?
Our life can't just be sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes we got to talk about something bad. because it's important.
That's what people
Damn
come
it.
here for. Remember we had this conversation the other day. It was just reversed.
What do you mean?
About telling people about the bad things in our life. You're like, no one wants to hear about that.
Oh, it's not something necessarily bad in my life. It's,
Oh,
it's
then
a
I really
movie.
don't care.
It's a movie thing.
Then tell me.
Okay. It's about cuties again. You remember that?
Oh my! Why are we talking about this again?
Well, because I think so. I don't know if you've been following this story,
No,
but
I have
okay.
not.
So the Cuties is a movie that has now come out on Netflix. But when we talked about it back on the anime episode that we did with Phil, it was still hadn't come out, and basically, French film came out. I think officially was released last year. And went to Sundance and stuff, and then Netflix bought it and they released it on their streaming service on like September 4th or something like that. And it's a French film supposedly about like 11 or 14, I can't remember exactly how old, young girls, and it's supposed to be a commentary on the over-sexualization of young girls in like pop culture. Basically, young girl, joins like a twerking group against her family's wishes, and it's that whole thing. But Netflix took that and marketed it as they showed them in scantily clad clothing on their poster, and mentioned, in the description was something along the lines of 11-year-old girl joins twerking group.
11-year-old
Girl.
Just hanging with the girls.
And it was really gross, and everyone was rightfully pissed. And then, Netflix changed it. In fact, it's kind of weird if you look at Cuties now on Netflix, they took the name off of it. And the poster is completely different. It looks more like it's like a girl about like a war-torn country more than it does what it is. It's like totally different, and the name is just not there. There's just not a name on it. At least when I looked.
So they tried not to associate with.
Yeah, they were totally trying to get rid of it. They changed the description and all that kind of stuff. So, but where we're at now is basically people have kind of moved the story has changed, as in it's okay. So this is not a film that's trying to sexualize 11-year-old girls. It's a film that's criticizing that aspect of, real life, right? Yeah. And Netflix just fucked up on the marketing, which they did. Okay, fine. I haven't seen this movie, but through other sources, like other people talking about it, I've seen enough clips at this point to know that it's still not okay what they've done. Because this movie has cast actual underage girls and put them in situations and filmed it that is not okay.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the reason I'm kind of talking about this is because like the story's changed a little bit. We've gotten to the point where it's like, oh, well, the film's okay. It's just Netflix screwed up marketing it. Nah, film's not okay because of what they actually required young girls to do for the filming. If they got 11-year-old looking girls who were 18 or older to do the stuff in the film, no problem. I mean, I don't know if I want to say no problem. I just don't like the portrayal, but you know what I mean. It's not the same thing. But unfortunately, because of the actual age of these girls, this is a thing where it's like, I don't know if you could even do what they did in America.
Right.
I mean, this is, it's French film, so rules are different. With
union laws
because
and
of all the
stuff.
laws as far as with filming with children and stuff like that in the movie. So, I don't know. I just don't. I'm a little afraid that this is going to get swept under the rug, as in, it's okay, because movie's sitting at like I think it's like 95% on the Rotten Tomatoes. Like critically, great. Audience wise, 3%. Everybody fucking is like, nope, not okay. Which is good, but I don't know. But I guess what's important is that if we self-identify as critics here, at least softly, on the That's Movies Brother podcast, I don't want to be associated with that crowd that's like,
so
yay,
don't watch this movie.
Do not watch
We're
Cuties. Don't be okay
endorsing
with
that.
it. And
we're endorsing not watching as well.
Yes, yeah. Or at least I am. I don't know if you've really followed it enough to know the full thing, but
I trust you. I don't say that very often.
I was a little surprised when you said it.
With something like that, you wouldn't say that, obviously. Like,
yep.
And just run with it. Like, I saw the original stuff that we were talking about, the poster and all that, and I didn't follow up with anything else. So if that's the case, then yeah, I'm good. I'm good on that one.
I don't want to get into any details, and obviously we would never show any footage like that because it's just ethically wrong, if not morally. So, so I can't exactly back up exactly what I'm talking about, but
Well,
and at the
you
same
can
time,
back it up. We don't have to show it, but if you want the evidence, it's there.
It's there. But at the same time, I'm also like, don't go watch it. I don't want to say that either. Don't go looking for the evidence.
Well, here's the thing: is we're telling you, and if you don't believe us, you've been warned. If you want to look at the evidence, you've been warned. We don't want you to, but
even then, it's like it's in this weird moral ground for me where I'm like, I feel bad because just by having viewed the little bit that I have, of it, it's like I have now viewed an 11 or 14. I can't remember the age in that manner, and that's weird. And you know what I mean? It's like,
well, I think to be fair, all you wanted to know because it was such a controversy.
I wasn't jerking off to it. It's very clear, obviously. You know what I mean? So I'm not. Obviously, that's not the point. But I'm just saying, it's almost like, if like with you remember the happening when all the actresses and stuff, their iCloud accounts got hacked and all their nudes that they had on their phones got leaked and stuff like that. It's like, it's every extra person that kind of got exposed to that because of all the internet. It just sucks even more and more. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's one thing if 10 people see it, but when 1 million do, it's that's got to be a whole different ballpark.
Oh, I'm not saying it's not weird, but at least you were going into this like, what is this movie about? Because not like in a way of watching it, but just learning more about it. And
I wanted to give it a fair shake because at first, if the movie wasn't what Netflix was making it out to be originally, I was like, well, I don't want some filmmaker and the people involved in making it to be wrongfully blacklisted. But at the same time, now that I know what's in it, I'm not going to make a comment saying this version should never work again. But I'm just going to say I don't know if this would fly in America. Yeah. That's yep. I mean, I just agree with you. I don't have anything more to say. No, yeah. I guess it's more of just kind of like a publicly just kind of putting it out there, and because I guess we have Netflix is, these online streaming services are in a weird place because they don't play by TV's rules necessarily. They can show. I don't like, they self-regulate. Netflix has its own guidelines as to what it wants to show, but outside of legitimate things that are actually illegal, like child pornography or snuff films and stuff like that, like there aren't really many rules on what can be shown and what's not. So
maybe not on what can be shown, but because they're still filming under the same laws and union status, whatever.
Well, they're not. It's international film.
I thought you were saying net. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because TV, what's presented on cable television has to be approved by what is it, the FCC or
I don't know.
One of those, United States-based government regulation entities that make sure that you're not putting out crazy stuff, which in some ways is limiting as far as like some aspects can't be talked about that aren't wrong to talk about, but then also they protect you from stuff like this. So it's a weird area, and if you're going to be a consumer of Netflix, like pretty much all of us are, you kind of it's nice to be aware that hey, not just because it's on Netflix doesn't mean it's okay to watch. I guess is my point.
Rated, do not watch.
Yeah, it's kind of it's in a weird area. I don't know.
That's moving on. Yeah. Well, cool. I'm trying to figure out where to
trailer
go
though.
Yeah, there were some definite cool trailers when watching Tenet. Okay, this is gonna be really out of left field, but I was editing. Way out of left field. I was editing some YouTube stuff or podcast stuff or whatever the other day, and I let out just gas through the upstairs. So I let out a burp. Okay,
you belched.
It was a substantial one. I was like, blah, blah, blah,
I find belching more gross than farting.
What?
Kinda, right?
Because you can't smell, so that's probably why.
It just feels wrong, and it's just.
I disagree. Even not just because of the smell. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, farting feels pretty natural. It's like
because you don't burp a lot.
No, I really rarely do. Yeah. Unless I drink a lot of soda, which I don't do much of anymore.
Well, anyways, I was in my own space, so it happened, and was editing, and then all of a sudden, I burped, and my Siri pops up. Because apparently it thought I needed something. I don't know what, and I was so confused. I thought it was worth bringing up because it always. like, it makes me think too about those moments when there's also an Alexa in the other room over there. I'm afraid if I say it too loud, it's gonna be like,
no way.
What?
From here?
What?
Hold on. Alexa?
It was a joke, Nate.
Oh.
We're like down a long hallway across the other side of the house
Closed
from this
door.
place.
That's why I was like, that's ridiculous. No way.
You just have it busted down the door, just rolls
played that
in.
too straight. Yeah,
just rolls in. It's like, what can I do for you? But like sometimes I'll be walking around the house and it'll be like, I'm sorry, I couldn't find that. I'm like, what? And it always terrifies me. I just feel like somebody's always listening. Which this is the moment where everyone is listening, so maybe not the best time to compare it to right now. But I'm always curious as to what triggers it, you know? Like how does sound like, hey Siri? It would have been great if it was like, you need gas X or something. That would have been fantastic. If somebody is watching me, at least like, have fun.
We're gonna get to the point where something like an Alexa or a Siri in your phone or whatever is going to be
do something like that,
like kind of soft diagnosing you based on things like that. It's gonna be like, it's gonna detect your fart and be like, probably should lay off salt and carbs or something like, I don't know, something like that.
All right, Alexa, calm down. I understand. I didn't ask for your input.
Yeah, or it's gonna, I don't know. It's like you're gonna be like climbing stairs, and like by the second flight, you're gonna be like breathing a little too hard, and it's gonna be like, this shouldn't be this hard for you.
Jimmy, you're fat. Lose some weight. Just starts insulting you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's going to be a weird.
I guarantee you, we will eventually get to the point where we can do insult settings, like to where if you want it to insult you like that, you could let it.
Ugh.
You could set it to it.
People
it's like,
so
like you get like a random like pain in like your chest or something, like, oh, that hurt, and they're like, would you like me to call the ambulance? Like, no, I'm good.
Did you ever watch the movie Her?
No.
2013. That's you remember the whole premise is nice, bro. Nice alarms on the podcast. It's Joaquin Phoenix. Is that whole thing where he like falls in love with Siri, basically?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Oh, okay. Well, I was
barely even heard of it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard the concept. It's interesting. We should maybe try to do it at some point. I don't know.
I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot. You know what?
It's just right along the lines of what we were kind of talking about.
You know what other movies we got to give a shot?
Tenet.
We got. I want to talk quickly before we jump into Tenet.
About some of the trailers?
Yeah. Just because there are some cool new stuff coming out. One of those being Dune.
Oh.
So I know you said you've heard of this movie and were excited for it.
And the book,
I didn't hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then like nothing. And then the first time I saw Tenet, I saw that trailer and I was like, I don't know what this is, but it looks awesome.
Yeah.
Why don't I know about this? And what is it about? Or you know what? I kind of don't want to know. I kind of want to go to this movie knowing nothing.
So here's the two things I was considering. Either doing that, because I don't know a lot about it. I've heard of the book. And the movie that they made with the guy from Twin Peaks and that kind of stuff. But I've not consumed either medium. And I know like little weird tidbits about it just from other sci-fi, like pop culture, there's other people basically talking around it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't really know much about it other than it's sci-fi with worms and planets and stuff like I really don't know much about it, but it looks really fucking cool.
It looks really
I
good.
love Denis Villeneuve, who, Blade Runner, I always forget. Enemy, obviously. Prisoners.
Did you just say Dune with an accent? Dooney.
Dooney. No, he's a Frenchman. French Canadian or something like that. But
well, this movie is
Blade Runner 2049 of 2 years ago.
This movie is jam packed with people, stars, and
Holy
that's
shit.
when I was watching. I was like, I don't know about this movie, but it looks awesome. And what are all these people? So I'm going to name some of the people
Timothy
that are in it.
Chalamet.
I don't know who that is.
Dude, he's been in fucking everything recently.
But the name sounds familiar.
He was in that movie with Steve Carell where it's like, you're a bad dad. I don't know. I didn't watch it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the name sounds familiar, but for some reason when I saw him as what is being portrayed as one of, if not the main character, I'm like, why doesn't he look familiar? So up and comer compared to the rest, I would say.
Yeah, but also like he's like younger than us, and he's been in like 4 big movies. Like Call Me by Your Name was a big
he's
one.
Like the new. He's like the new. When anybody gets discovered, but he's like the new. Wow.
I have no idea who you're gonna mention right now. He's like the new somebody not important enough to remember.
No, like one of the most important because he plays my favorite superhero.
Tom Holland.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
I guess
He had maybe not in as much stuff.
the
but
thing
like,
is, he's been in more, and I don't really know because I haven't seen a lot of these movies because they're not usually up my alley. But it still feels like Timothée Chalamet's been in more dramatic, like heavy dramas than Tom Holland has been.
or like new, like I'm just remembering some of the people when they.
Like,
do
this is
get
one of the
big.
weird ones where he's actually in like a action adventure sci-fi thing.
But it's one of those things where, like, Tom Holland is now, he's been in a lot of things, and then you see him, like, or people are now pitching him for stuff.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with, like, Chris Pratt after Parks and Rec, and he started doing stuff with,
sure,
like,
yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy, all that. Anyways, but about this movie, it looks dope. You have Timothée Chalamet. You got Zendaya.
Yeah.
Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Jason Momoa.
He's mowing the lawn.
Monalon. Jason Momoa, Dave Bautista.
Yo, Dave Bautista's
Stellan
looking like a fucking
Skarsgård.
albino Shrek in this movie, my guy.
I really don't have much to say besides this is one of those movies that when you see a trailer, it's not like, oh, there's cool sci-fi stuff. I think I'm going to see that because there's a chance that might be good. I have to see it. This is one of the trailers, especially knowing nothing about the movie at all, that this is how you do a trailer right. To me,
it is intriguing as hell. It's doing sci-fi in this weird ass way because it's like it's almost a little bit, just a tiny bit Star Wars to me as far as things feel new but also old as hell.
like apocalyptic.
And it's like magic but also science. Everything's kind of like weirdly meshing together.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And like this.
Well, to me, this doesn't feel like when you see a lot of sci-fi trailers of new sci-fi things, like, and it just feels like either like a ripoff of something that's already been done, even though you said it's kind of Star Wars-y, or
flavorless.
just right, or just like, oh, we're making a cool sci-fi movie,
Yeah.
but doesn't have substance. Like for some reason,
Like Valerian.
even though like
or
again,
Jupiter
Valerian wasn't-
Ascending.
Yeah, and not those obviously are good to back up the whole like premise of they weren't actually good. But even when I watched the trailers, it was like, well, those okay,
No,
I'll give them a
I
shot.
get that. Like I watched both of those movies, and outside of just the story not being good, they just weren't. They were shot seemingly generically, you know, just like it's another one of these where like people are running around in spaceships with laser guns.
And
or what the
somehow,
fuck ever,
even
you
though
know?
a lot of this was in showing a lot of action and didn't give us a lot, like I don't really know what the story is about, it still feels like it has heart. And I don't know how they did it, but I'm excited.
Yeah, Denis Villeneuve, man, he's fucking good.
Props to the editors too. They don't get enough, credit.
Wow, we're all about
just
the
saying.
editors recently.
I'm just saying.
Maybe he edited. You don't know.
I don't have a
You
lot
wanna
more
know.
to say besides we're looking forward to it.
Excited.
We're seeing
Oh,
it.
one thing I wanted to find out. There's two ways we can go into this movie. We can go into as blind as we are right now, or we can watch the old movie from 1980 something.
Nope. Not because it might be great,
The
and it
thing
also
is,
might be.
I've heard it's not.
Well, regardless of what it is, I'm gonna compare. And
Yeah.
because of how excited I am for this, I want to go into a movie fresh. I feel like I haven't done that in a while.
84. Yeah, it's just I guess the thing is that I guess I'd rather go into this one fresh opposed to because the old one fresh. I'll just watch the old one after, and then I'll kind of compare.
I'll definitely watch it after.
Yeah. Okay.
Then the last movie, which we know about, we briefly talked about, but I want to touch more on is Black Widow
Mm-hmm.
because I started saying this when I was watching it tonight in the theater, but I was like, I'm gonna shut up. We'll talk about it on the podcast. This movie, gives me. Let me start with a hot take.
Winter Soldier vibe.
If for sure,
Mhm.
but I think we mentioned that before. But if this movie gives me the same vibes that I'm getting from the trailer, especially this new trailer,
Yep.
this has very good potential of being in my top 5 Marvel movies.
I do like how it looks for sure. There are things I'm a little worried about it with. Some of the supporting characters that are new in this, and their accents and some of the humor, I'm not on board with from the trailer. Some of the little quips,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, "What's your plan?" "Well, I was gonna drive away." "Well, your plan sucks." Zing!
Yeah.
No, didn't work for me.
Yeah, I can.
And then like some of the family, like that family dinner scene where it's like, "Don't talk to your mother that way." It's like, I get it, they're spies, but they're a family. Like some of the humor, I'm not really on board with yet. Which it's a trailer. There's not a lot of like you don't get a full thing, but I do like, the
just
set
feels-
pieces look
it
intense.
feels
I've always
so-
liked Taskmaster as like an idea, as like as a villain. He's always been really cool, and he feels different. He doesn't feel like, basically Black Widow, but evil. Like a lot of origin.
Which
Marvel movies
weirdly
do.
enough, this is every hero but evil.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Maybe some villains too. We don't know, but Taskmaster Master basically has the ability to mimic other people's abilities, sort of in some way.
Yeah.
So you see it throughout this trailer, which is cool. How they give you nods, like the way he does, like his arms crossed, claws out, kind of Black Panther. He does a double, basically like a double jump kick, backflip, and lands in a Spider-Man pose. And that is they pick moves that we've seen in the movies. And then they have this person do it in a way that's
weird.
intriguing.
How does he? Because this is supposed to take place in like pre-Iron Man 2.
No, false. This is
When is this supposed to take place?
This
then?
is between Civil War and Infinity War, when she's in her in between.
Oh, I don't know why I thought. Okay, so that makes more sense. Although I don't know how he knows who Spider-Man is.
Spider-Man was around in Civil War.
I guess so, but I guess I mean, only for like that one incident, basically. But okay, I mean, I guess so. I don't know. It feels a little strange.
Well, I
like,
guess we'll
is
find
he-
out who Taskmaster is. Maybe it's an insider. Maybe it's. I can't think of anybody, but
Who would? Yeah, I was about to say. No, I mean, I'm down for it though.
but it gives me such like Mission Impossible type like kind of vibes where it's like it's more grounded, but still
but
feels
the
like
set
it fits
pieces are
in.
still big and like it's still
It
feels
doesn't
like there's
seem
a lot of
it doesn't
shit
seem
going on.
unrealistic to me for Black Widow and her group of like the widows. I think there are multiple like widows, like there's Black Widows and like White Widows and stuff.
I mean, it's gonna be bonkers. They're gonna be doing superhuman, superhero bullshit. I mean, like, we're not saying it's a realistic looking movie. Like where
I think this is a realistic of what she and her group can take on from what I've seen. And you say that,
within
but there's
universe,
a lot of stuff.
but not like in our world. You know what I mean? It's not like a realistic. You know, I mean,
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think we're going to see Black Widow and the other widows do the other like spy people do any sort of like what they do for Fast and Furious and make The Rock lift up a freaking tank or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're going to see them do what they're capable of doing.
Right.
Even in a realistic world. There's superheroes in this world, so we might see a couple of superhero-esque things, but I'm saying if this movie just feels like they're really grounding the characters, and I feel it. I'm getting the vibes. The music to this trailer just gets me going.
It
bro.
does.
Like,
It has its own like personality for this. It fits it really well.
It
I
really
think.
feels like this is this does not feel like it feels like they're doing something new, or at least tapping back into the Winter Soldier vibe, to where they're not just doing this. And again, I could be wrong. It's a Marvel movie, but super formulaically. Like, they have this, okay, well, she's off on her own side mission thing, and we're going to make this a little different.
Right.
And I'm hoping it's going to be a little different.
I just hope that they kind of tap a little bit into some of the moral ambiguity that is part of the Black Widow character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's kind of like, got to do bad in order for a good thing to happen, kind of. You know what I mean?
What?
Like, you gotta be a little bad in order to do large good. That's very simplified.
Did she say that ever? Like,
What?
is that her viewpoint? Has
No,
that ever
but
been
it's
her
kind of
viewpoint?
been like, when she was introduced in the thing, it's like, yeah, she was lying to everybody for like the betterment of like the Shield.
She's a spy.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It's like that's the whole spy thing, is that like, yeah, I'm like, I lie to people and I work in like this morally gray area, but for the greater good. And so, like, I've wanted to, like, dabble in that. It shouldn't feel like Captain America, where it's like, nope, I'm always going to do the best thing for everybody right now all the time, which is fine for him, but I just don't want that for her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I would venture to say that even if she doesn't do that as much as you hope, she has changed and grown a little bit throughout the movies. That I can understand if she doesn't make those exact decisions. But getting into more of just, let's just kind of, like, do crazy fight stuff, do a little more since she is a spy, and get a little more into the mind, I would appreciate too.
Yeah.
Instead of just seeing her kind of have to fight alongside Avengers, like is.
Yeah, I imagine there's going to be like sneak heisty sections of this somewhere in there. But yeah,
those are two movies excited for. When does that come out? Dune comes out in December.
Yeah, I think it's like a kind of near Christmas release. Hopefully,
when
fingers
is
crossed.
Black Widow?
November, yeah, 8th.
Woo, 6th.
6th. And
Cool.
then what else? Wonder Woman we've talked about before.
We're not talking about it.
Yeah.
That's it. Let's jump in the movie. This is probably one of the longest we've gone without jumping into movies. I feel like it's
Really?
already been almost 40 minutes.
That seems pretty normal for us.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know if this is going to be quick because we're talking about Tenet again.
Yep.
I don't know if we're going to have more concise thoughts or just more thoughts because we figured out more stuff and then have more questions.
So I guess just to preface, in case you didn't listen to last week's episode, we've seen Tenet before. Tyler more than me. Because my viewing experience was fucked.
Let's put it this way.
This was more fun for me than it probably was for Tyler because I got to see it in proper resolution and on the big screen for the first time.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Still. But we both seen it once. But if you go back and listen to the last episode where we talked about Tenet, Nate had a very bad experience with the theater he went to. It was a mess. So he wasn't ever fully invested in this movie, which is kind of why this is beneficial for him. But it's also beneficial, I think. This feels like a movie that you might be like the smartest human ever and can just really pick up everything and follow along. But for most people, this is a movie you should probably be seeing twice.
Yeah, and I mean, I even told you that I was listening to another podcast, one that's substantially larger than ours. And,
our good friends at CinemaSins.
Yeah. And they did a review of this movie, and they basically said exactly what we said in our first episode, just in a shorter form. They're basically
just spent 2 hours about
I think it was pretty good. I don't really know, though.
So we talked about this movie already on our first watch, and there was things that were confusing, so we gave our first impressions. I think it's always good to talk about your first impressions coming out. This movie does, I think, and we decided together that we both think it deserves a second episode. It deserves to be talked about after thinking, rewatching, breaking it down, almost even researching more about it, and really diving in deeper, because this is a movie that needs to be
Would
deep.
you wager to say that if you're looking for a more casual review of Tenet, listen to this episode, and if you want a deep dive, listen to both? The last week's and then this
I don't know if it's not really casual. It's versus not casual. It's
I just feel like this one's getting more concise
and
yeah.
loose without all the facts. Because the other one is definitely looser, but at the same time, there's going to be stuff in this that we didn't talk about in the first one because we didn't catch it.
Yeah.
And if you've seen this movie now a couple of times and then want to get someone's opinion and listen to our first one, you might be like, oh my goodness, why am I listening to them talk about the same thing over
Dummy
and over?
boys.
Because they don't get it when they should get it. Well, yeah, because you've seen it multiple times. This is, if you want a proper review of this movie, I would say listen to this one.
Yeah, that's
like
kinda
this
what I was
is like
thinking.
concise, really what we think after really being able to. But we've got all of the evidence together. I feel like we were missing pieces before.
Yeah.
So if you want to listen to just us kind of rambling on of our first thoughts of really to get an idea of how confusing the movie can be, go listen to the first one if that entertains you. And even I wouldn't say entertains you. I'm the kind of person that yes, it would be entertaining, but I also get curious as to how people break things down and how different it would be from your first to second view. If you're interested in that, go listen to the first. If not, we're going to jump into the more concise version here. Yeah, let's start with hot takes. I'll go first for this one because it's similar, and I feel like yours has the potential to be very different because I feel like you're seeing this more fresh now. And mine, what I mean by similar is I love this movie and I liked it better the second time. I think
it'd be hard not to. Honestly.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, that gives me an idea of maybe what you're thinking because we were talking about in the last episode that if there are certain things that you don't find out and don't necessarily click, it's like that's just going to make it worse and I'm not going to care. So if that's the conclusion you came to, then you might not like this movie the second time around. Whereas the first time, if it's more confusing, but it's cool, you can be like, well, I can enjoy it. But then when you sit and think about it and rewatch it, you go, this is garbage. There was a movie that we were talking about that was like that. It wasn't Ready Player One because you hated that from the start.
Oh, man, there was a movie. Yeah, I
talked
know
about
what
it
you're
too.
talking about. Fuck.
You said there was a movie you watched, you really liked it, and now you hate it.
Snowpiercer.
Yep, that's it.
That's it.
So that's an example of I don't know what your review's going to be. It gives me a little bit of a hint, but I really like this movie. In fact, I love this movie. This might be top 10 movies. I don't know if it breaks 5, but it might be top 10. I say might, and that's after seeing it right now just because watching this movie again, there were times that, especially when the visuals kicked in, they're doing cool stuff. I find myself smiling when watching it. And I know that, like, that's what gets me is, again, when movies make me feel things, but especially positive or cool emotions. I can relate to the negative ones and appreciate those are good movies, but subjectively, I really like the ones that just do really cool stuff and just get me all like to almost movie nerd out.
Yeah.
And like this did that again, especially now that I could follow along better and was paying attention even more and trying to make sure I could piece things together. Then when they did that, it paid off even more. And I don't even know if you heard me because I said it verbally and I was like, this is so cool when I was watching it. That is I don't really know what to say. I really like this movie. The visuals.
Any difference? What are the big differences between first and second watch?
Well, I don't want to go crazy into that before I give the hot takes, but
just highlight.
There are still some issues for me with characters. I still didn't feel super attached to certain characters. Actually, one of the characters that I thought they did really well with was the antagonist, the main guy.
Yeah. I was
for a
actually
specific reason at the
thing.
end that really tied it together for me, which we will break down. I really enjoyed, and I didn't think I was going to find that rewatching it. And the personalization and how much I'm feeling connected to the main character doesn't change much.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of sucks. Definitely wish I could have felt more connected to the main character. But besides that, I'm trying to think of some other things.
Cannot believe that's Kenneth Branagh. That's the main villain.
Yeah.
Director of Thor.
Yeah, that is crazy. But so yeah, to finish my recap because I feel like I'm taking a while. Visuals, great. I love the soundtrack, and I want to get into that. I love the soundtrack. I really enjoyed the visuals, like I said, but like the story they implemented with the visuals, and this makes more sense the second time I watched it. I'm not gonna say it's completely. I don't know if foolproof is the right word, but at least in my head, I don't know if I've closed the gaps, even if all the answers are there. But I've done it more, which made it more enjoyable. That's where I'm gonna leave it before we go in.
So me with this, I like this a lot. And I can definitely say that mood had a big deal about, like, I went into this movie like, kind of re-excited for it again and kind of like in a good mood to watch it, and that drastically changed like how I looked at it and stuff like that, because man, watching it the first time I was just so disconnected because of all the stuff we talked about last week. But so going into this, not only do I feel like I have a really good grasp on the plot, but I feel like it doesn't follow, like everything does kind of lock together and make sense for me. I think it works as a story really well. There's some little things that do bother me. I'll say I think I liked the characters more after watching it the second time than I did the first time. And like I said, totally agree with you. I think the villain, there are some of his scenes I really, really liked, and even the protagonist and Neil and some of the other side characters I liked more watching it the second time than I did the first time. Some of their chemistry worked a little better, especially at the end. Got me more than it did the first time.
I will say that I think I liked it more this time, but it still didn't give me what I think it could have been better, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. I still will test it as
I'm
well.
just agreeing that is still one of the weaker parts.
Yeah, like me. Neil and the protagonist kind of getting emotional for each other at the end. I didn't buy 100%. I was like, you guys have been working closely together for the past, I guess, 2, maybe 3 weeks. It's a little hard to follow the exact timeline, but you guys are both like hardened spy people. It seems weird that you're kind of like crying about each other a little bit at the end, but
to be fair, the protagonist was more starting to tear, but the other guy wasn't. And
exactly, it should have been the other way around. But then also, I mean, I can't. You're right. Neil has had apparently a much longer relationship with the protagonist than the other way around. But he wasn't the one really openly expressing emotions, which I don't. It's weird. But anyway, I will, and then so that I'll say as far as the soundtrack, I don't remember noticing it all that much.
I definitely did.
Which I mean. I feel like that's the kind of flip. Normally, like in a lot of movies, I'll be like, because I remember saying that about like Lord of the Rings. I was like, oh man, I love the soundtrack for that kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, did you? There
are parts of this movie, and I felt this. There were parts of this movie when the soundtrack kicked in that different parts had a very similar theme to it, just like in Inception.
Mm-hmm.
The basic like bass drops and the way that they happen,
Right.
make you think of Inception.
Yeah.
And after watching it the second time, hearing the soundtrack again, I was like, this is Tenet. I know it sounds dumb because duh, we're watching it, but like it felt very specific to it. Like they were trying to make their own theme out of it. And I
it definitely
really
fit
liked it.
the movie from what I remember, but I don't.
There were
it doesn't
specific
feel like
beats they repeated over and
doesn't
over.
feel like something that I would listen to outside of watching the movie.
But do you listen to like Inception outside of the movie?
One song from Inception's really good. It's called Time. And it's like it's simple, but it's very. I like it a lot. You'd instantly recognize it if you heard it. But outside of that, no. And I think that's probably true for a lot of the scores in Nolan's films. Like I think there's like one song in Interstellar I like, but I wouldn't listen to the rest of the soundtrack, kind of a thing. So, but anyway,
anyways, I really felt it. I thought it added, and there was another this movie, especially. Well, it happened during the battle sequence at the end.
Mm-hmm.
In where a reason that I really like this movie, and that I think I can say that might be in those top 10 is those moments in certain movies when you feel like you're experiencing something so almost viscerally. Like, for example, this is the utmost example, which is why this might be number one movie of all time at the moment, because these are change.
Sure.
But just on a pure subjective level is Avengers Endgame, just because of what it made me feel.
Sure.
Purely what it made me feel. Well, there's a lot of other reasons, but there was one moment or a couple moments during that last battle sequence when things were happening and things were like clicking and you're seeing how it's affecting different things. And I'm just sitting and I had this meta moment, like sitting in the theater being like, I'm feeling it again. Like almost that, but not close to the Avengers extent, but to feel like I was experiencing this cool theater moment that I was going to like remember, and maybe I'm getting way too emotional about it, but just something really clicked with me, especially the second time when I felt like I could follow it more and process it better.
I will say that this, while I do like it a lot, this is not anywhere near my top 10.
That's fine. There's a lot of
I'm
good
just to kind of give a reference of scale between the two of us. And I mean, that's not, that comes off so negative, but it's not, that's not its intention. It's, you know, that should be a very hard list to break into. Not every movie's going to do it, and I don't go into a movie thinking, well, this should definitely, if this is worth my time, it should break my top 10.
No, you should not go into
You can't do that. Yeah.
But at the same time, it sounds like you liked it enough that when I said that, you said, oh, interesting. You are not.
But I wasn't like, oh.
Right, this is not something that if somebody says that, you would try to refute them on that necessarily. You'd be like, I can respect that that's in yours, but it's not in mine.
Right.
But you wouldn't get like upset about it, like if I said Ready Player One's my top 10. Is that all you have to say before we jump in?
Yeah, I would say so. My big issue with this movie still is,
and from now on, I guess we didn't really talk much spoilers, so that is a very concise reason as to why we like it.
I kind of did like drop with the
whatever. At this point, if you're listening,
if you're on part 2, dude, come on,
this is spoilers.
Yeah, it's fully spoilers. That's kind of the show anyway. So the logistics of how the inverse objects thing works is still confusing to me, and I don't know if it ever will not be.
Let's tackle that part first, because that is the main core of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
The inverse people understand fully. I don't really understand the objects, inanimate objects. I understand if a person gets inverted and how they can control how things are kind of going backwards and stuff like that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go, I'm going to inverse the entropy. What does the word entropy mean? I might sound dumb.
Decay,
I don't care.
Right? It's like the process of decay, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, about to look it up. I don't even know if I spelled it right. I spelled it right. The thermodynamic quantity representing... Oh, jeebus. All right, hold on.
You might want the layman's term definition here.
A thermodynamic quantity representing the unavailability of a system's thermal energy for conversion into mechanical work, often interpreted as the degree of disorder or randomness in the system.
Gradual decline into disorder.
Lack of order or predictability, gradual decline into disorder.
So, I mean, I was sort of close.
Simple definition of entropy: the measure of a system's thermal. Nope, that's the same thing.
Anyway, okay, getting too far into the word there.
No, it matters. Anyways, so if you reverse the entropy just seemed like the word they used to say like
from point A to point B, basically, right?
It's basically like the timeline of which is moving, if it's moving forwards or backwards, but it's a one-word way to say it.
It's like why I thought of decay is because, like, as a human, since you're born, you are, in a way, a constant state of decay until you die. If that's a bleak way of looking at it, but I mean, so you're reversing that flow.
If you reverse an object, and you say like, I'm reversing, or I'm inverting this bullet, so its entropy is reversed. What doesn't make sense is what we talked about in the first one, where at the beginning, there's intent involved, where it's like, well, it can move backwards, but you have to drop it. It's like, well, I'm not moving backwards, so I shouldn't have to have the intent like I actually dropped it. It doesn't make sense for inanimate objects to move backwards without any physical being interacting with it. That doesn't make sense to me. And luckily, almost luckily, my point is luckily, it doesn't really do much of that as the movie progresses. They start with a bunch of objects moving in reverse. Then they kind of go to the people. If they did a bunch of objects, I'd be like, I can't follow this because now all this is getting confusing. It doesn't make sense.
Well, even with the people, right? So when the protagonist.
So really quick, before we get into the people, you agree? And we're going to stop right there because we can't sit here and argue about, or try to find the answer because we've seen it twice. That just doesn't make sense. If anybody can tell us how it works, I'd love to.
I would be so open
to that.
But
I'm not going to sit here and try to figure it out at this point because I know I'm just going to get more confused.
I will say that even though this problem was there for me throughout the movie, and it did at certain times pull me out, make me ask the question, like keep thinking in my head, there's got to be a way this works. It wasn't so bad that it was that negative of an experience. Like, it didn't ruin the movie for me. That's basically what I'm saying.
Right. So the people, though.
So I will say, like, when John Denzel, the protagonist, was walking outside for the first time when he'd just been reversed, which it's kind of weird that you can, like, lock in, like, a room can be flowing with them. And it's
so you can't. Okay. That's what I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
So this is an interesting part. One of my favorite scenes is the blue and red room. That's showing it's a physical representation, which is just really for, maybe it's for the people to realize which side you can kind of go into, but at the same time, it's also kind of for the viewer, which I like. I like the way they did it. I don't have an issue with that because in the airport, the first time they go through the turnstile, or someone goes through the turnstile before they really explain what it is, the rooms where you enter and go out of the other side aren't different colors. So they don't have to be.
Yep.
The rooms are not going in reverse. It's just when that machine reverses you. You just go out one side and come in the other. That kind of gives you that visual aspect of doing that. In theory, I guess you could have a door come down and come back up and you'd be reversed.
But he didn't have to start taking the fake oxygen until he walked outside the door.
Right. So I think what they did was have I don't think the room itself was inverted. I think they just had the ventilation system.
And then
they have the ventilation system. They're pumping the inverted air into it because
where are they getting it?
I thought that is a whole interesting question, but that's not, again, that's one of those
that's like they have to pump regular air into the turnstile and have it constantly flowing.
But you just have one of those on your back or whatever, or wherever their oxygen.
Yeah, but I mean, you're thinking about like a week's supply for like 20 people. You know what I mean? Like you got to have. They could
have a mini inversion thing like on their back that inverts just air. It like sucks in air, inverts it, and feeds it to you.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they. Maybe they didn't. It's not.
They said they had to have
impossible.
inverted air, is what they said.
Yeah, but I just didn't imagine it would be like that. But yeah, sure.
That's not a huge deal because I can get
just
past
a very
it.
small little turnstile things.
Well, it probably wouldn't look like that, but you know what I mean. Because if you can have a big one, you can probably make it into whatever.
Sure.
Regardless. So it's not the room itself. You can enter like, okay, if at one end is the turnstile and the other end is the doors that you either walk out or walk into, you can walk into both and you'll still be moving forward. It's just when you go through the one side and then it turns, you get reverted to the other way.
Right.
So originally when I watched this, I thought that the main girl, I'm going to stop this right now. I'm going to get character names here because we never do.
Oh, something with a K, right?
We're so bad. Yeah, Kat.
Yes. Bada bing.
So
she's tall as fuck. I didn't notice this at all the first time I watched this.
That's crazy. I immediately noticed when
she's
I watched
like a foot and a half taller than John Tilton in Washington. I swear.
And the antagonist, if you notice, they rarely ever show them standing next to each other.
Except for
because he's
where
the
she pulls the
antagonist.
gun on him, I really noticed that
But he's sitting down. He was sitting down.
No.
Yes, he was.
No. Not at the end.
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
room where all the guns are laid out.
but if
he's
you
like
look-
looking up at her. And I was
But
like,
if you look
dude,
at it, they
Tenet.
always cut from his face to her face.
They don't
almost
show
never
him profile or anything
until
yeah.
she falls to the ground because the antagonist is supposed to be menacing.
Yeah.
So having a taller stature helps with that visually.
I want to know what the difference is because I think.
Can we get back to the
yeah,
whole?
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I thought that Kat was inversed, but she wasn't when they went to the red and blue room scene, because when they were captured after the car chase,
Right.
you see that he gets brought in the red side, she gets brought in the blue side,
Mhm.
but he is already in reverse. He's wearing the mask on the whole the car trip and everything the entire time. He basically brings her in reverse, but she's going forward. So she actually got shot by an inverted bullet. Like, it wasn't like because remember how I said,
Yep.
why is getting shot by an inverted bullet worse than a regular one, you asked me? I was wrong in that definition that I said
It
before.
actually is physically devastating.
It is bad. So apparently, which I was taking notes during this movie. I don't know if you noticed.
I saw you on your phone under your shirt. I was like, damn, I thought we were supposed to be paying attention.
I had to take notes because of how this movie is and how
Sure.
the things I needed to talk about. I lowest brightness setting, put it under my shirt so no one could notice,
Yeah.
shoved my head under my shirt to take notes. Where was this at?
Just for a height update, the woman who plays Kat in this movie, whose name I immediately forgot, is 6'3",
Yeah.
and David Washington is
5'6".
5'9".
Oh, 9. Okay.
So he's not as short, but that's why you thought he was 5'6" or 5'7". Can you imagine if it was Tom Cruise in this movie instead? Yikes. My poor man, Kevin Hart. If this
Yeah, so basically, okay, so I kind of wrote this down, but my spelling errors are insane. So being able to make this out. So apparently it's when you get shot by the inverse bullet, like there's like
through you
reverse
behind.
radiation happening in your body.
Oh,
so it
that's
said
why it's
the
bad,
reason they
okay.
had to go and bring her into reverse. I don't know if you caught this. I caught almost every line in this movie. I was so proud of myself. I was like,
Yo,
I got
oh.
it next. I got it next. Let's
Sorry,
keep going.
that was one thing I meant to bring up in my hot take. Audio in this movie is still fucked. Dialogue audio. Action stuff is all fine, sounds great. When characters start talking to each other, there were many a scene where I was like, I just can't fucking understand what
So,
they're saying.
again-
And it's volume. That's it. It's just not loud enough. In the extreme, not quite IMAX, but soft IMAX theater, I cannot hear what they're saying.
I don't know I think it would have helped if it was a little louder, but I was able to get almost every single line this time because I knew that that's where it lost me.
Yeah.
And for you had so many other issues that you probably weren't like, let's pay attention to the words. You're like, let me just enjoy this movie now.
There were definitely things where I was like, I even thought like, okay, I'm gonna close my eyes so all I can do is hear. And certain dialogue, I just couldn't quite. And there's some accents in here too, and like some soft spoken
That
like
makes it
dialogue
harder for
stuff.
sure.
Yeah, but like, man,
Well, I heard a lot of this. That's why I'm excited because now I feel like I understand the trajectory of the plot. But anyways, they said the Aaron Taylor Johnson dude, the military guy,
Yeah.
was talking. It was like it's too deep, and he was talking, and he was explaining to the protagonist basically like it's reverse radiation. The only way to basically fix this, or she'll die within like a few hours, is you have to put the patient in reverse in the reverse time. To help, basically, it draws out it basically nullifies the reverse radiation
Yeah.
because you're going in that direction.
sure.
kind
I
of
mean,
thing.
it's mumbo jumbo.
But that makes
But,
sense,
yeah,
right? In this world, it
from
kinda
like a
makes
movie
sense.
perspective, yeah, sure.
with the rules set up in this
Yes,
world.
yes,
If
that's-
you've been
I'm
shot with
totally
something that
agreeing,
has
yeah.
reverse radiation,
Right.
if you reverse, it levels it out, so it's almost like a regular wound.
Yeah.
Or at least something like that. So.
I thought it was just because if you picture a bullet flying backwards through you, that just seems like it because you have the blunt side of a bullet and it can't stop because it's supposed to go back in the gun. So you know what I mean? It's going to rip through you, blunt side backwards. So I figured, yeah, I can imagine getting shot by a bullet like that would suck.
No, but so that's why, because again, if you didn't understand that, then you don't know why they're going back in time. There's the only reason
No,
they're back
I
in time
knew
was
that
to
they
save her.
for yeah. I knew no. I knew that. I thought it was because for yeah.
Why?
No,
But then why? Because I'm not getting mad at you if you don't understand why, because I didn't the first time either. But like, it wouldn't have made any sense for them to go backwards in time to then get to a turnstile to then go forwards in time. Why would that save her? But it's because the reverse.
yeah, I kind of thought it was because if they went back through the turnstile, then her bullet wound wouldn't have happened because they were moving the opposite way. But that's not how that works.
No,
so
she had it, yeah.
she still had the scar. So I was kind of like, Yeah, I don't really.
Let it go. Continue on with the plot. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, so that's why then he bandaged her up when they got in the timeline to go back forwards. He healed her or whatever. But they said, like, how long is she going to need? And he's like, it was pretty bad, probably 4 to 5 days, maybe a week just to be safe. I don't know if you heard that part when they were rolling her out into the reverse timeline. And he was like, okay, well, we'll find then we'll go into another one or whatever. He's like, where's another turnstile? A week ago. You don't have one. He's like, the airport, we found one. So that's why they go there and use the 5 days to get there. I like it. I followed it. Cool.
Yeah. I hadn't even realized that the airport one was a turnstile until they went back to it.
What?
Because I was just like, they walk into this room and then there was these weird doors and then they pop up. Like, I'm not saying this viewing. I'm saying when I was watching it originally,
gotcha. Yeah,
I was saying that, like, when they were just two guys popping out of some weird doors, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, and then they were like, that's a turnstile, and I was like, oh, shit,
the first time you see it, of course. Yeah, you're not supposed to understand.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if you were on the same page there.
No, because at this point, at that point in the movie, we don't
really
know how people can get reversed. We know where they can because that guy that came out was reversed, but we didn't know that was why. And what you also don't realize, and I don't know if you caught up on the person actually saying it, but there were two people that came out of the doors, but it was the same person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the lady that he was talking to later, he was like, yeah, we found somebody came out of this thing, and there were two of them, and they were like, they came out at the same time, both doors, and she was like, that's the same person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that makes so much sense. Like, it's just so cool because obviously they have to meet at that one time, and one's going forwards, one's going backwards. So that's why, like, when it was going forwards, he came out in reverse, and his version of himself that had gone back and then is coming back out into the present day later in the movie, that's who runs into Neil, and that's when he sees him, and he goes, don't kill him because it's freaking you, but doesn't say it. You know?
Right.
So what is the issue now? I guess that you have with the people going backwards.
Well, I was gonna say with, like, certain intent stuff, like so just go back when the protagonist is first walking out inverted. He's gonna get in the car and go back on the freeway and try to get back the at that they don't really realize it's a part of the algorithm, but yeah, at that point he steps over a puddle and the puddle starts reacting to him because he's about to step into it.
Yeah.
So that's obviously not that specific scene in general, but what that implies is that the puddle is just like the bullet is reacting to his intent to put down into the water. Mm-hmm. But
that one's different because he has the choice.
Yeah, he can. But then what would happen to the water? It would go back to not being moving again?
The entire point is that he's going to step in it. You see it reversing, which means he's going to do it.
But him seeing it react to him could alter his decision. And then he doesn't step into it, and then boom.
So
would it have to have already... Like, what does it taking that into account?
It's not necessarily. I mean,
I know
it's taking into account
that
it's taking into account that he's going to do it. Like, he is doing it, and it's basically like knowing what you're going to do before you do it.
Right.
Visually, it's like that puddle's moving in reverse. Because I just stepped in it.
So, like, if he had started to put his foot down, saw the puddle, and then took his foot away, before he done it, never would have moved.
It wouldn't have moved in the first place.
Okay,
Makes sense?
Yeah. I'm getting that. I'm just thinking
because we saw it actually happen is why it actually happened before.
Right.
I know it makes that it's taking cause and effect and reversing them, which is another line in this movie that I liked. The one scene I did like about the beginning when they were showing he was first learning about inversion when he was talking about the bullet. The lady at the beginning says, he was like, how come it moved before I touched it? Again, don't like the direct correlation that it's an inanimate object, but this next line where he's like, how come it moved before I touched it? And she said something about whatever, in this perspective, you caught it, but to the bullet, you dropped it kind of thing. But what I really took out of this was her next line, or he said, I thought that... something about cause and effect, and I thought usually the effect came after the cause. And then she said, I'm trying to find the line because I wrote it down. Close. I guess I didn't write it down. Basically, she says, that's not, maybe it wasn't her. Maybe it was a different point in the movie. I swear I wrote this down. But there was a line in the movie somewhere where somebody said, and I think it was in that scene, where she said, that's not, or... I'm just rambling now.
Yep.
Cause usually comes before the effect. That's what I said. And she said, no, or she said, that's just how you perceive time, basically. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm stumbling around my words, trying to remember the exact. Doesn't matter. Basically, the point is, he says cause comes before effect, and she says, that's just how we perceive time.
Right.
Basically.
Oh.
Which here is a main thing that I want to say really quick before I forget is this movie does basically what I was saying a long time ago when we were talking about time being the fourth dimension. And we touched on it the last episode. We talked about Tenet. We were kind of poking fun at it, and you were kind of making fun of me about it in a playful way. But time is
Certainly
basically
sounds like me.
the fourth dimension. And for example, if there is a being that lives on a piece of paper, but is not 3D, so not an ant, but something that actually lives flat, they can't perceive the third dimension going up. They can see length and width, but they can't see it going up. How they would perceive it, I don't really know because I'm not a two-dimensional being. But they couldn't see basically that third dimension. They would perceive it. They would perceive a third dimension in a very strange way that we cannot really relate to. Time is the fourth dimension. We are three-dimensional beings. We see it in a linear fashion because that is the best way for us to perceive it.
Yep.
Whereas this movie, which is why I love this movie, whether it makes complete sense or not, it is the closest that I have ever seen something give us an ability to feel like we are a fourth dimensional being. Like it's the closest thing to how we should perceive can deceive the fourth dimension without being a fourth dimensional being. And I just find that super fascinating because they've done it in a way that creates that fourth dimension of time by going forwards and backwards more than just I'm time traveling and popping into a different time, because that's not really seeing the fourth dimension in more detail. This thing takes that fourth dimension in more detail, even though we're still on a fourth dimensional being, so it's still kind of hard to comprehend. But it seems like the closest thing, just like, for example, you can bend space. Wormholes, black holes, you can basically, if taking a piece of paper.
Let us know at home if Tyler is as madman rambling to y'all as he is to me right
No,
now.
but here's my point. I'm making sense, though, right?
It's a little hard to follow what you're saying. I get the basic premise. This movie kind of allows you to take a step back and view things from this quote-unquote fourth dimension from a time omniscient point perspective.
And there are many points in this movie that does what you said you weren't getting the first time that I noticed this time because I was kind of looking for, well, I was looking for lots of pieces, but which is this gives you plenty of points where it's basically saying time works differently than we perceive it.
Yeah.
Even at the end where he was saying, in the battle scene, he's like, I want to be part of the first team that went in. He goes, Bud, we are. He said, it's happening. They are happening at the same time. You need to stop looking at this as linear. Stop looking at this linearly, or you need to get out of here. Is basically what he said.
I really liked those scenes and how they work together. That final ending battle scene, especially when I could see it in its full.
Yeah. He said, get off the team
fidelity.
if you can't stop thinking in these linear terms.
Yeah.
And I was like, Christopher Nolan, and this might sound crazy or mad, but that's the point of this movie is making you perceive things in a way that you usually don't. This is the closest I have ever been to perceiving the fourth dimension without being a fourth dimensional being. Wow. Because it perceives it in a way that makes sense that it doesn't make sense. Wow.
Sound like Joe Rogan talk about DMT.
So the last thing I want to say is, for example, you can bend space, which is a third dimension. Black holes do that. And basically how people like to explain black holes, whether this is fully true or not, but I've seen this everywhere. You take a piece of paper, you poke a hole through it.
Yeah.
How do you get from this point to this point quicker than this straight line? Well, you bend it on top of each other and poke a straight hole through it, and that's how you...
What movie was that in? It's been in lots of stuff.
It's been in not even just movies, but other explanation videos I've seen. So if you can do that with that dimension, why can't you do that with time? I mean, we might never, it probably will never have the ability to do that because we're not a fourth dimensional being, but that's my point. Or maybe there is a way, just like black holes.
Theoretically, why can we? Yeah, I
theoretically,
understand.
and that is taking
That's
this
not what they
dimension
do in this movie.
Well, they're
just changing flows. They're not changing like the rate of time.
Right, but here's what I mean is the linear, this just ties into the cause and effect. The linear way that we see time, cause and effect, and how, well, if this didn't happen, or if this hasn't happened yet, how can you have the future version of yourself coming back because you didn't get there yet? Yep. It doesn't work like that. You're folding the times on top of each other. That's how I'm looking. That's a better way of, I'm just trying to visualize it for somebody.
Yeah, they're
it's
interacting
not that it happened
with
that way.
each other
it happened at the same time because you folded the
simultaneously.
time on top of each other.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. That's the best way I can explain it because that's what we went back and forth about.
Yeah.
Was like the cause and effect, and the folding time on top of each other like you do space is the best way I can kind of put it into the physical terms.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool that I put that together. Proud of myself. Really like this movie.
Wow.
It just makes me feel like, whoa. All right, continue.
I will. So one thing I want to try to see if you can clarify for me here is the whole thing about don't interact with yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know, because this is strange, right? Because they say, what happens if you do? Annihilation, which is incredibly vague. He does.
No. He didn't say interact. They said your particles cannot interact. He said, and she said the words after that. She said that's why we have this protective gear.
Okay,
if his
so
skin touched his skin, catastrophe. But there's material in between. Your particles cannot touch, because then I'm assuming, again, I don't fully understand the fourth dimension of time, but whether it's folded on top of each other and you're experiencing this at the same time, I guess it's saying, which it doesn't make sense to me. Which makes sense to why would I guess explode.
Well,
but like,
it's the same thing with the inversed bullet and a non-inversed human, right? It's like, I guess your radiation, like, that contact. Well, but they didn't
this
say
said
that.
like instant, basically, and I think it's because two versions that are happening at the same time but going in two different directions, colliding physical particles. It basically creates a paradox that the universe can't handle, and it explodes. That's the best way I have to explain it.
Yeah, I feel that part of it feels very, and obviously this is a plot point in Back to the Future, but that feels very Back to the Future-y.
I disagree.
As far as like the simplification of like the science, where it's like two U's, we can't handle it. Boom! It's just you just explode. That feels a little goofy, doesn't it?
Well, it's almost like black holes are probably pretty devastating, and that's folding space in and upon itself. Almost two spots of space colliding, and that is a catastrophic
I don't think
event.
that's what a black hole is.
Sort of. It kind of sends you from one space to another.
I think you're thinking of wormholes. Black holes don't send you places.
Aren't they the same thing?
No, it's like an infinitely dense singularity.
Well,
so it's just consuming things infinitely.
I thought that
it's
was
so dense. It's gravity's. It's just pulling shit into it infinitely because it's just so dense. You're thinking of like wormholes.
I thought there was
the idea of wormholes. No. I mean, I guess no one truly knows what happens when you go inside one, but an infinitely dense gravity force feels like it would be like going into the bottom of the ocean.
The picture I was talking about.
Yeah,
but you're right. But you're right. So okay, well, whatever. That's what I'm saying. So wormhole pulling kind of time in on itself. It's creating this like devastating kind of. I mean, maybe not, but it seems like a catastrophe kind of event, like a wormhole. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I've never thought of wormholes as.
Maybe it's because I was thinking of black holes and wormholes is the same thing.
Jonah's out there fucking having the time of his life listening to us talk about science.
I think this part, yes. But the way I explain time, which can't really be explained by proper terms. Has he seen this movie? Well, I guess he
tried to see it with me.
Yeah, not a good example. But my point is, two physical beings, whether it's first dimension, second, third, or fourth, two spaces, two beings colliding within one dimension, the same dimension, but at two different spaces. I can see how that can be catastrophic. I don't need a lot more explanation. Example, it didn't ruin it for me. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it ruined it for you as much. You probably thought about that spot or that bit more. But
just for the bit where it was relevant in the middle, I was just trying to think because I was like, he saw himself.
Yeah, it's
and
not
recognized it,
particles,
and so I was like, okay, it's not seeing. And then he physically interacted. Now he didn't touch skin, but they jostled with each other. And I was like, well, they did that. So I mean, it just feels a little bit like goofy that they actually have to touch skin. Like it feels odd that
because
would be the
not
barrier.
the part of interacting with yourself as like in a space and seeing yourself. Mm-hmm. It's the actual particles. It's the physics behind two beings in the fourth dimension meeting each other in like physical. That's what they were getting behind. It wasn't like, oh, if you interact with yourself, it's going to mess things up, which I thought that was it the first time I watched it, but getting what I did from this time, that's what I got from it.
From what it kind of sounds like to me is that it's there because they want to keep that secret alive that it was the protagonist interacting with himself earlier in the movie.
I can see how that can be part of the reason, but I can also understand why the physical particles would be an issue.
I have no idea why they didn't just tell the protagonist everything from the beginning.
Okay, so now we're moving on to another part of the movie, which I knew we were going to address, which is basically, can you change things? So this is a part that you left for. We watched this movie again because it doesn't matter if I saw it again. I wanted both of our opinions on it.
I still don't think this one scene.
You can't say that though because you missed that whole scene, so you don't
know
what it
Sure,
gave.
I could have missed the scene where they're like jumping out of some building. I mean, okay,
that
fine.
scene is
had to
less
go to the
important
bathroom
to
and I forgot about the scene. Whatever. Tell me what happens.
Well, that's my point. Me telling you is my perspective of it, and with this movie, we need to be I'm not enough. Does that make sense? Like what I could have missed things, and that's why I wanted both of us to be able to get different parts.
It feels like it's just more of what the Neil's character, Robert Pattinson's character has said all throughout the whole movie is that
he
thinks
the whole movie.
Huh?
Okay, basically what happens in the shipping container scene when they're going back, the protagonist says, basically, if I'm here and haven't gotten to the certain next point, then how can the next part even happen, and how can I come back? Basically, the grandfather paradox, and that's what Neil says. He said, well, that is the grandfather paradox, and he said, so is it possible? Can we kind of change basically, what's the answer? And again, this is why I wanted you to see this part, because I feel like that is one of the hardest parts to grasp of this movie, and I wanted to be able to break it down together. But
did they actually give an answer?
So he said it's a paradox. There's not an answer, and he says, so can we change things? And then Neil says, basically, the people from the future believe that. And he explained the grandfather paradox in the movie. Neil says, if you go back, kill your grandfather, would you even be alive to then go back and kill your grandfather, creating that paradox? And he said the people from the future believe you can go back, stomp on your grandfather, kick him down the stairs, do whatever, and you won't suffer any consequences to it. And then the protagonist basically says, well, kind of, what do you believe? And he's like, optimistically, I believe that we can change the negative events of the future kind of thing. And he was like, pessimistically, and they were talking about how kind of what happens kind of thing. And I think that's part of I know this might ruin it for some people, maybe for you, but it's part of the beauty of this movie is that there's so many things like stepping in the water puddle that if you see it moving backwards, it means he's going to step in it. If he moved his foot, then it never would even started moving backwards. So the things that you see moving backwards, are going to happen. But there are some parts of these people that still believe that there are certain key moments that might change things, but the thing is they don't really know that answer, and so they try to basically live their premise of Tenet, which I think he gets the idea from when he talks to Neil about it, since the main character creates Tenet, which is you kind of keep everything on the DL because we don't want to ruffle the feathers we don't need to. We ruffle the feathers that we know we need to, and that's it. Because whether things happen because they happen or whether we can change them or not, all we can do is basically use time to our advantage and do what we know needs to be done. And that's not a very concrete answer,
but
that's what I got.
If the protagonist is creating this program and he knows that he's and so he's kind of using Neil to interact with his former self to get this done the way it needs to be done, to get back the 9 pieces and what have you. There's a crucial bit in the middle part where it's like, okay, it's important that you know at least this right here, because the whole chase and him giving back the codes back to her, back to Seder, and then her getting shot and them having to go back through to save her. All that could have been avoided if you just knew what was going on.
But the point is that if it was avoided, then the whole scene that we had seen before wouldn't have happened, where they go back in the airport and he fights himself. So the fact that they saw that, something had to have led up to it. So that's.
But they weren't even planning on that happening, because when but
it happened.
The protagonist.
That's my point. That is the part of the movie that where the stakes start to break down, and they go, nothing really matters if you just take the everything that's going to happen in the movie just happens because it has to.
It's free writing. It's the same thing with the Doctor Strange. There's only one outcome. Therefore, the one they did in the Endgame, all their decisions had to be right because it was the only way it was going to work.
But you didn't really have a huge complaint with the Endgame.
2 very different movies. I'll say I judge them
Writing
differently on
should still be
scale.
good in superhero movies.
No, and I do have problems with Endgame. It's not. I don't have the same view on it.
Well,
that
that's Infinity War that sets that up. That's the biggest.
Right,
if anything,
but in Infinity War, it doesn't actually have consequences. In Endgame, it does.
Yes, but I accepted it by Endgame, so the movie Endgame itself didn't bother me because the action of finding the one. I will admit that I love Infinity War, but when he goes, the first time I watched it, when he was like, how many do we win? He goes, 1. I was like, 1? Come on. And I knew it was writing him to a corner. That felt more like a sin, like a movie sin, than what they had to do with it in Endgame. Because in Endgame, they had to then do what they had to do. And at that point, Endgame actually mattered because they could have ended up in a position where things didn't actually work out.
Endgame was always going to matter.
But that's my point. So the actual thing where it's like writing yourself into a corner where that one thing or nothing else matters.
It's not so much writing yourself in a corner. You've kind of freed yourself is what I'm saying, is that you can kind of do anything with that logic because you're on the precipice.
So why is that bad for Tenet and not bad for like
I'm not saying it's not bad for
well,
I think in Infinity War it doesn't actually affect the movie itself. Infinity War, it really only affects Endgame, because all the things that happen in Endgame, that's where it had to be the only one. I mean, I guess technically some of the actions at the very end of Infinity War, you could argue, fair enough. But I guess
the entire reason that he didn't stop Peter Quill from losing his mind, which he could have easily done, but he didn't because he knew that was the one way. It's like, well, what's going to happen is going to happen. Same kind of premise. But what I like about this second viewing of this movie is that there was more grasp on all the people didn't really know if you could change things. They were pessimistically hoping you could, but knowing the things that they saw in reverse were going to happen. So to kind of try to play within the rules of making sure they do happen when they're presented with the situation that might lead to that next event. So I'm not saying it's foolproof. I'm not saying that, but it didn't really bother me enough. And it's a cool contrast of, can things change? Can they not? And what happens in a way that was satisfying for me.
It just seems like you have to fully, because these feel like absolutes, right? If you can change things, then you can. If you can't change things, then you can't. And there's no in between there,
right?
They
talked about alternate universes too in the scene where you left, and I missed what they said about it. So I don't really know. So that might be the one thing we don't get a concrete answer on in this one.
Maybe not. But I guess.
And the bullet lady, the arms dealer. No.
The
arms dealer lady
yes.
that he meets up with later. He's like, in the future, because he's back in time and going forward again, he's like, you're going to make me basically give away this part of the algorithm to him because you know how this is going to go. And she's like, yeah, basically that she used him to get all 9 pieces together.
Right.
And then he was like, well, maybe we can change it and do this thing. And she's like, no, if we're in a universe, he's like, well, let's at least try. And she's like, if we're in a universe where that happens, this isn't it. That was another hint at universes.
Yeah.
Which
I'm more open to the universe thing because if my whole point with the if you can, you can, if you can't, you can't is that if you can't, none of this matters. Because if you can't change it, it's going to happen either way. There's a line in this movie where it's like, just because something's predestined doesn't mean it's an excuse not to do anything. But I don't see how that actually tracks, because if you don't have any impact on the future, then trying and not trying doesn't seem like it would make any difference.
Well, it does. It's just that the future, because here's an example. If you don't know the future, then it definitely matters. So, like, let's say there's 2 options for the future of our world right now. That one is going to end up in flames and blowing up. Just the entire world blows up in 5 years. And me and you, Nate, somehow run across something amazing that allows us to have the potential to do something about that, right? So let's say the options are the world blows up or it doesn't. We don't know that those are the options. There's many other options too, but let's just say those are some of the options. And then we hear about some evil plan that something happens to where that might happen. The world's in danger, and me and you, Nate, have the ability to save it. So we decide to do that. That's just called life. You don't know the outcomes. You try to make that correct outcome. I had a point to this. I'm trying to remember my other point. So like you were saying, so if you know that the end goal is going to be good, then yes. In a sense, it doesn't necessarily matter as to what you do. I think it's just a personal.
Doesn't matter
game
if it's good or bad.
Well,
game. No, like I think the more clear example would be if I could see into the future and I knew that 100 years from today the world was going to explode. But I saw that future. That's the only future I saw. If all I know is if I believe in pure destiny, where that is
even
the
if
future,
you do something, it's going to blow up anyways.
That future is already accounted for me seeing it. It doesn't matter. None of that. Nothing I do can change it.
That's
it's been
why
set.
I think a key part of this movie is that some of these main characters, like Neil was talking about, pessimistically, he does think things can change, but he knows there is a lot of stuff that is still left up to destiny, and they try to play within the rules of not ruffling too many feathers, but doing the stuff that they know they need to do to get to the point that they end up at.
Just feels weird that it feels like a lot of side characters know everything, and that the protagonist doesn't know everything, and that feels like it's made for the plot to be structured the way it is, so that we and through the protagonist don't see everything, so that it can be slowly revealed to us. Also, because if we learned everything from the get-go, no fucking way anyone would understand it, and also, to build up suspense and tension and all that.
Here's the
stuff.
best way that I can explain this. I think maybe I can get a grasp on this if you'll understand or not. The last time I try to explain this is, if the outcome of the world is good or bad, regardless, if the person who can solve it does stuff about it and the outcome is good, let's say he knows the outcome's going to be good, but he still does all those things to make sure it's good.
Right.
Then that's what made the outcome good, right? If he did the bad things, the outcome wouldn't be good. The thing is, it's a cause and effect. They go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
One is not happening before the other. So my point is, if that character is doing bad things, the outcome's not going to be good. So he wouldn't see the future and see that it's going to be good. If he saw the future and saw that it was going to be good, it's because he took the initiative to do it. Even if he knew it was going to be good, he still has to do those things. Because if he did the bad things, then if he saw the future would be bad.
But
Does that make sense? It has to happen at the same time.
But that does imply that you can change the future.
No, it doesn't, because you don't see the alternate. That's the thing, is you don't see the two options. It's
the presence
definite.
of an alternate implies that the future can be different.
But I'm not saying that. I'm saying this as an explanation, not that there is an alternate. Because what happens in the future happens in the future. And if it's good, it's because the person did those things for it to be good. And if it's bad, it's because the person did the things that's going to make it bad. Regardless of whether you know whether it's good or bad, because we know, for example, this movie, if we knew, which I think it kind of gives you hints, but if they're very clear, watching the movie might be pointless. But if it was very clear at the beginning, all is going to be good, and it's everything's going to be fine at the end. We're still going to watch this person go through all those positive things because that's why it's good. Make sense? Does that make any sense?
Not really, because
Okay. Well, I hope
I just feel like these are two absolutes, and there's no middle ground. So it's either you can change or you can't. There's no like you
can't. No, you can't. You can't. In my definition, you can't. But again, you have to look at you can't change, not linear. Because if you're talking about changing it, then it's linear because of cause and effect. Cause and effect doesn't work that way. The outcome and the actions are the same thing. So it's like, if it's a good outcome, it's because somebody did something good. But if there was a bad outcome, it's because they did something bad. But there is one or the other. There's not an actual alternate. It's just what is the outcome as the world. And in this, it was good. And it's because they did the good things. There wasn't an alternate.
But
because
again,
what happened, happened. And they say that line a lot, too, in the movie. But anyways.
That seems to be most of the stuff. I will say that because of the kind of this like weak loop that they kind of do where they go forward, toward the beginning, and then they get to the point where, she's injured and they go through the red blue room, and then they start going back, and then they go to back to Oslo, and then they start going forward again. And then they're on. So I do feel like I missed a little bit here towards the end when they're back on the boat, planning kind of for the last act of this. The final battle scene on the boat, and it's moving backwards through all the windmills and stuff. They've inverted themselves again. Because that boat's moving backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So they're doing this like kind of track where it's like back forward of this week in between the two turnstiles. Kind of correct.
Say that again.
Okay, so they're moving forward then until they hit the red blue room, and then they start going back for the first time.
Yes.
Then they go back to Oslo, and they start going forward again.
They go back to where's Oslo?
Oslo is the airport with the storage facility.
Yeah. So they go back when they heal her. They go back.
So
forwards.
now they're going forwards again, and then before they go into the final act, they're inverting again when they're in the boat. In the big cargo ship. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So first he goes and talks to the arms dealer lady, and it was like, you're going to make me do this.
Well, sure. I'm just talking about the flows of inverse.
Oh, I thought you were trying to find out why.
No.
Okay. Yep.
My point is that it kind of seems like they can redo if they needed to, as long as they don't die.
But
they could.
That you're jumping back into the cause and effect type thing, which is if we saw them. Since things are happening at once, it's not. We have to think of this not linear because everything's kind of happening at one time. Time being folded over on itself. If we would see it happening earlier in the movie if they're in the same place as they were before. Mm-hmm. Like for example, if she had to go back on the boat and try to make sure he didn't kill himself over and over and over, there'd be 10 of those ladies on that boat.
Yeah,
but that didn't happen.
Right.
So we know that they're not going to go back over and over and over. Now, if they had to, then they make there's a different movie where there are 10 versions, then it gets really complicated, but I'm glad they didn't.
Well, okay, it didn't happen in the movie, but I'm saying theoretically it could have potentially sort of happened. I mean, there's nothing from what I understand physically stopping them from doing that. In fact, they could just, if they wanted to, outside of the plot and everything that's going on, you could bounce in between with a 1 week.
It's not that you couldn't.
Right.
It's just that it would give you, if there's an issue that you have to then go back and fix again, the issue is going to be completely different because there's going to be an extra person in the timeline.
Well, but
so
but they did that with the suitcase. When the protagonist first inverses, he goes back and tries to rectify his mistake and get the piece of the algorithm back.
Right, but what actually happened, which is what he didn't know, because he said, and when he was in the shipping container, I don't know if he had left yet, but Neil's like, this is why you shouldn't have gone, because you hand it to him. Like I said, what's done is done, because he threw the
orange
piece.
box. Yeah.
He took the
piece
one
out.
of the piece
Yeah,
of the 9 algorithm. He threw it in the wrecked car.
Right.
When they passed it,
Mm-hmm.
and then he threw the box to the guy.
Right.
Or he took it out, kept it loud, threw the box. Then he threw the algorithm into the car. Into the wrecked car, because that's how, when he got into the car when it was before wrecked, he saw it bouncing around and then fly out of his window.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, I don't know. I don't understand what I was saying. What was the point?
That
he went back to try to fix
that
it. Is that he went back to try to fix it, but we didn't realize that was him in the car.
Yeah.
And that the guy got it from him because he went back. So he didn't actually fix anything. He was just living out what he saw already, which happened. Like, it had already happened, but he didn't realize it because he didn't realize it was him going back. And he gave it to him, and he had it because that's what he did. He didn't actually end up fixing it. He tried to fix it, couldn't.
Right.
So
it seems strange you could just kind of, in a way, infinitely duplicate yourself.
yeah, you could.
Yeah.
That would make the movie and everything else more complicated, because then you have to follow along with different versions of people. But you would just, the first time if all those people went to one place to redo something over and over, the first time you go to that place, you'd see all 10 of them.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of strange is that in really early on in the movie, when he's getting the inversed object thing explained to him with the bullet.
Yeah.
I found this funny when I was reading back, because I was really paying attention to the dialogue, and he's kind of like, so how's this, he's talking about the inverse, and he's like, there's no bullet in here. And he's like, yeah, it's because just fire it. And it's like, you caught it. It's in the magazine. And he's like, he asked like one more question. And then he immediately goes, so what about free will? And I was like, well, fuck. I was just trying to understand. It's going backwards, guy. You jumped straight to free will? Which it's just like, I'm not saying it wasn't a problem. It was just struck out to me because it was just like, man, you went straight to like the philosophical discussion opposed to just like, how'd a bullet going backwards go?
That scene, it still bothers me just because
it feels
I even laughed
underwhelming.
out loud in the theater. That's the one scene, because when he's like,
well,
you're not,
the
you're
line,
not
don't
shooting
think
it.
about it, right?
No, it was, you're not shooting it, you're catching it. He goes, whoa. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah. It is a little
we
lame.
get it. Like, we get it. And I don't know. He
It's
just seemed like he
just a little
wasn't very
poorly done.
overwhelmed,
Yeah.
which I get, the maybe trying to be that nothing doesn't faze him kind of guy. That is another issue I had with this movie, was that I didn't get that vibe from him. He just didn't seem, he needed a couple more characteristics to, I feel like, give off the, I almost want to say leading character role, but I mean
like the like half eyes open lid.
Like he looks almost a little too. He doesn't look like he's in as much control as I think they wanted us to believe. As in, not control of what's going on, because obviously everything is crazy, but like, I mean, like time related, but like everything else, like in himself, he maybe gives off too much that he's a little too confused, and so you just don't buy in that he is this just crazy, just really hardcore. And maybe if you had set up something more at the beginning,
playing, so a lot of, especially when movies have, it's like if you remember in Inception, they when they're introducing the main concepts of how the dream process works, they don't instead of in this movie it would be the equivalent if they had Leonardo DiCaprio's character confused about it and asking all the questions. No, he's explaining it to Ellen Page's character, and she's our guide through the emphasis. So usually those characters are split, but in this movie it's just him. So he's playing this weird double role where he has to be the protagonist, seasoned hard badass guy who's leading us through, but also the audience's guide to understanding what's happening in the world. And that's hard. It's not impossible,
but could be done really well if you did it like to where you establish that maybe I feel like I needed more to establish that he was the guy. You know what I mean? Like the guy you call on, the
His
special
best
agent
scene,
dude.
and maybe this, says something about me that I'm just a simple man. I like punching. The restaurant fight
Oh my
scene.
gosh, it was so good.
So good, yeah.
He cheese grated some dude's face.
Yeah, I love like he was using the cheese grater thing to smack down the punches. I that part, like, and that, just something simple like that is like something I'd be like, huh, I've never seen that in like a fight scene
Yeah.
before, but it's like that makes total fucking
Cool
sense.
fight scenes and cool fight choreography is always when you use things around you.
Yeah.
Environmental choreography.
It's like I feel like Jace, the original, like the Bourne Identity, like kind of, I don't want to say invented because I'm sure it was done before that, but it was like the movie that was like, oh shit, like he just fought a dude with a spoon. Like I don't know, it was like the first time kind of a thing.
But what I was gonna say is maybe if you have like I was gonna say having more stuff at the beginning, not make it longer, but maybe a little bit. Just having or something different to
This
make
movie
you
is long.
feel.
I don't know if it should be longer.
No, I don't know. I'm just something to make you feel that this character is more of that like the guy you go to, the number one special agent dude. Like maybe even having a fight scene like that or that fight scene in the beginning. I don't know. I feel like there was just something missing. Yep. I feel like I didn't get quite that vibe. And that's just kind of a bummer.
You know, this movie we talked about a little bit that it's like
and then
oh,
I'm sorry, can I say this real quick?
Okay,
I'm sorry.
sure.
I'm because then that's how you do this character better is you make him feel like that and you make him try to control situations more because he's known for being that guy as like he usually knows what he's doing. So he tries but kind of gets a little bit shot down in a friendly way because what's this guy?
Neil?
Neil likes him and so he's not like being mean to him, but puts him in his place a little bit in kind of a friendly way. And then he gets his character development to where he knows he doesn't know everything. And then he learns all this stuff. And I feel like that would feel like this character is going from, not that he starts out as a know-it-all, but he is the guy you go to. And then as the movie progresses, he starts to feel like that because he's used to being that guy, but so unintentionally he's trying to take over these situations. But then it's like, no. And he tries to, and then Neil explains it a little more, and he has this breakdown, and he learns, and he develops his character further that way. That could be interesting.
Yeah, it does seem like a part of why maybe Neil and the protagonist's relationship doesn't quite work for the audience is because of Neil has a relationship and knows things about the protagonist that we are never shown and don't know. So that history is not earned with us. Therefore, we can't really establish with it.
And that's what makes this, even though you don't see the stuff after, it makes the second viewing better because you know more about that. Even if you haven't seen it, you know more.
Yeah, but you still never get like
right.
Neil...
I'm just saying it makes it better the second time around.
Sure.
Not necessarily as good as it could have been, but still makes it better.
What I was going to say is that we mentioned that this movie is kind of like a soft, and I think we even found out that this was trying to be kind of a soft James Bond, like a Nolan's on a Bond. And it does one thing that's very Bond-esque in my mind, where characters meet to talk about something, and they meet in dramatic-ass locations for no reason. It's like, let me go talk to Kat. Can we find a hillside vista over the water to
I
fucking
love
randomly
that shot,
talk?
though.
It's
I'm
beautiful,
sorry.
but it's like, you could have just talked over the phone. Or like whenever he goes back to talk to the Indian woman who's the arms dealer. They're always like walking in a market or like on the side of what looked like at one point they were in like some temples. And it's like, is she never, like, you caught her at home the one time. Why is she always out doing random ass walks when you guys are talking? It's just, it's not a problem or anything, but it reminded me of like some James Bond stuff where they're always in like crazy locations.
Mission Impossible type stuff where like
you
have those meetings, but sometimes they end up in a dramatic fight scene or something like it did with the kitchen scene.
Yeah.
But I want a little more of that. Just because I felt like there was a lot of explanation dialogue that felt a lot, especially the first time I watched it, which, like I said, hurt it for me that there was a lot of that and it was hard to follow, which I will still stand by a little bit. Definitely better the second time if you can really, really pay attention, but been cool if they broke into more. Not that fights make everything better, but if like it escalated the tension
start punching.
Like escalating the tension throughout those meets, if something like that happened, like you felt that with the kitchen scene when they showed up.
Yeah, because I mean, to back up your point a little bit, you know, when characters are talking about, even if they're talking about serious stuff, they're constantly peaceful with each other. Like, you know, the Indian arms dealer ends up being an antagonist by the end of it. She has, you know, she's not 100% to be trusted, but she's helping him throughout the movie. So when you see those two characters interacting with each other, you kind of, you're lured into a safety with it. Yeah. When you should, I feel, something might make it a little bit better is if you're constantly a little bit more on edge when he's with her. If you feel like, oh, shit could go down because they're interacting.
Which is the one interaction I do go with that is the antagonist, which is kind of the last thing I want to touch on in this movie is because we both really like that character.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to let you just rant for a second while I go get my computer charger.
I thought I brought it. It's back there, bro. Yeah.
Dude,
I put it. Yeah, dude. I got your back, bro. No, you're good. But yeah, Kenneth Branagh. Who would have thought? He's acted in other stuff before, not a lot I'm familiar with, but I always just think of him as the guy who did Thor, which is probably like, especially if you're older than us and you're probably more familiar with other stuff he's done. But I enjoyed him. His character is interesting, although I guess in an extent he's basically just a bit of a control freak. You know what I mean? He's just from a bad home control freak. That's kind of the it's not the super complex ridiculous movie at the or character at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, let's put it this way: he got rich. He was in the right place at the right time. He found the castle.
Well, he got
from
rich
people in the
also
future.
from his ruthlessness.
Right, so he got rich. The people in the future were he found all that gold, and some people are really greedy, and he has those tendencies, and he's like, I want this all for myself. Basically, kills the guy that he's with.
Yep.
So he can't get any of it, and so he's used to having all this stuff, having by to himself. He gets the lady who is basically now he's just captured into having a relationship with him, and now that he knows, especially that. She doesn't love him, which he probably knew from the start, but he has this thing, he's in control of it, and that seems to be the only way that he feels he can get things is by being in
he's
control.
Lost control because he's dying.
Yep.
So he's lost control of his own
life.
Mortality. So he's such a control freak that he's like, if I'm going to die, existence
But
will
also,
die.
and now he knows that, so he's still trying to control the things he can because he's dying.
Yeah.
Not even just existence, but before we even get that crazy, all the other things along with that is what he knows of how he gets things, and he is this rich guy who, like I said, is in control of his not wife, girlfriend, whatever, the lady, the cat, and he is basically keeping her because he doesn't really know what else to do. He doesn't really have any other options. I mean he does. He could let her go, but you know what I'm saying, like that's what he knows, and he doesn't have control over certain aspects of his life, and so that's people like to control people in those situations sometimes.
You know what's kind of weird? Okay, so last couple things I want to touch on. They're not super big.
Well, are we done with talking about him?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I guess you're.
I don't want you to forget your thoughts though. If you want to spell them out real quick.
Yeah, I guess. So I don't really know what the algorithm would do if it were to be completed. Would it just reverse everything backwards? Is that what we decided?
Yeah, they talked. I think you left when they were mentioning a little bit more about that. But basically, it takes the. Oh yeah, you were. They did talk about that in the container. Yeah, so it basically takes. That's when they were talking about where most of the time is going forwards.
Ah, yes,
and
we
then,
had this. Yeah,
and
I know.
Part of
what
it's
you're
going
talking about.
backwards, and he said that's why something with a car accident, whatever. And he said the main character was like, pissing in the wind is basically what he said, because this way's the majority, so it's winning and all that kind of stuff. And basically, if you try to revert, like not just reverting objects and people, but he says like the entirety of everything, of the universe, of beings and everything, that
need a big old turnstile.
It would.
Tell you.
So
just instantaneously.
Yes. Yeah,
gotcha.
And they might have. I think they said a little bit more about it, but.
Now, that would have been a dark ending, but visually, I would have been interested to see what he would have done with it.
Nolan might have made that look cool. But touching again on Surtur, is that his name?
Yeah, Satyr.
Satyr?
Yeah.
Surtur is
Satyr
from Thor.
Satyr is just a half goat man, isn't it? Like Mr. Tumnus is a satyr.
He's a faun.
Oh, you're
but
right.
There are satyrs, and they're basically the same thing.
Fawns are just half deer, half man, and satyrs are half goat, half man. I'm pretty sure. Yes, I'm going to look it up.
Don't have to look this up. I want to talk about the guy, and if I start, then you're going to interrupt me halfway through this, so I'm just going to ramble really quick here until you find it. What?
Oh, not really. Something about a butterfly. Well, yeah, I was right. Yeah. Goats, ears, tails, legs, and horns. Yeah, okay, cool. Drunken woodland gods. Huh. Okay, sorry.
So, satyr guy, man, the evil guy, I really liked at the end where because that was his current version of himself, like walking around, going through time and stuff that went back to that date. And it makes it almost humanizes him, that like he wants to have that last moment where he felt like he was loved.
Yeah.
And that's where he decides to go out in that happy place, which was cool. But also the way that just the way that he was acting towards Kat was this way that we've never seen before, at least originally, when he was like, I thought you had gone ashore, and she was like, I thought you had flown away, and he's like, I came back, which was really just him, his future self coming in. And he was like, I wanted to come back and see you, and then she said something, and he was like, we both know that my opinion of you is greater than yours of me. But he sounded like his performance was really good, and he just sounded so sincere in this moment.
And it's a realization of the character, right? Like he knows that, like, even if he's not going to stop what he's doing, he knows he's not the best guy in the world.
Yeah, and that's why I liked it. Like he humanized, like that he knows what he's doing is not great, and he is trying to go out on these positive notes, and even if it's with the past version of his wife, make things right to him in that moment. And the way that he was treating her was like just so 180, and I really liked it. Like I felt like that arc of that character just really fit together, and like we were talking about his other performances throughout the movie, and he's not even Russian, is he? But I liked his Russian accent. It was fun. No,
I'm pretty sure
it was fun to listen to. It was cool. And yeah, I wanted to mention that basically the end part, because that's when I was really like, man, you good job on this character. And I think that he was one of, if not the best character in the movie, just because of his arc and the way they portrayed him like that.
Yeah. How does a guy like that convince henchmen to do stuff? Because if you win, existence is over.
I don't think
they must not know. Right?
Just like the people in the future believe that it's going to be helpful or whatever.
It's just like funny that like he's got all these henchmen going on in the back of his head. Is like, thanks, guys. I'm going to end the world now.
Yeah, that's rough, dude.
Yeah. It just seems like a hard sell.
And then the last thing, I mentioned music before. There were moments of this that felt like it was its own thing, and I really liked it. And so I already said that. No need to retouch on that. But I liked in the battle scene how when it showed the reverse people and go back and forth, the music was almost in reverse. I don't know if it was the exact same music, but there were parts of the score that were
sounded
reversed.
Like that. I did not.
And it was really cool. Like it made me like really feel in the moment when you went from the red team. And I'm wondering if it was the exact same score reverse, because that would have been dope. I don't think it was completely. It would have probably sounded way too awful to our ears. But they took parts, or they took certain things, and they made that reverse kind of noise.
Yeah.
And it really put things together. And it was like the culmination of that was a cool example of how they're talking about most of the world is going one direction, and you have the fighting direction, but most things are going this way, so it's winning. This scene was 50-50. It didn't matter which direction you were going in. Half of the things we were seeing were in reverse and forwards, regardless of what side you were on.
Oh, yeah.
And that was so cool. When you saw one part of the building explode and coming together and the other half explode.
Oh, especially that one scene where it's like the top and the bottom of that building exploded and then it like fell. Yeah, that was definitely one of the standout moments. Because they did it at the same time.
And it was just, it was so cool.
I will say.
And the guy with the grenade, Neil was like, he saw how it had exploded and how it was about to come back, and he's like, that's a grenade. It shouted, and one guy gets out, the other guy gets sucked into the grenade explosion and dies like crazy.
Yeah, at a certain there was one point where the protagonist gets like, he gets too close to basically like some rocket launcher explosion, and he kind of like reverse, because he's in reverse and he like flips over it. If you remember that kind of scene, and I was like, what are the logistics on that? Because like if that happened, was he hurt from the rocket explosion? Was he hurt after? I don't know. Did that hurt him at all? Because it seemed to like happen like he didn't have control over it, because he was just like, "Whoa, I'm going in reverse!" All of a sudden, and it was over, and he was like, "Okay," and he just kept running.
I remember one where a piece of a building had exploded and fell on the ground, and so the other guy going the other direction, reverse or not, I don't know, runs onto it. And then the piece, like as he's running over it, gets like sucked up back through the air onto the building, and it like flips him off. Yeah. He's fine, but he goes for a tumble. Like, that's cool. That was a really cool scene.
I will say something about it. Something about the visual aspect of seeing the reverse aspects didn't quite in and itself like win me over. I was that concept by itself didn't make me go like, well, especially like watching the fist fight between the protagonist and himself again after, basically when you're watching him inverse do it, didn't really, I was kind of like, man,
that was one of the moments I smiled. I loved
really
that. Yeah.
it didn't really do much and I don't know, it's just kind of a strange thing.
Because watching the moves and knowing what he did the first time and watching him intently and then watching him again from his perspective made it really cool for me. I really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I'm not saying it's like, I'm certainly not saying it's bad. I just something about it doesn't pull to me or something like that.
The way he squirmed on the floor.
Yeah.
Trying to get to the gun.
It was kind of funny, and like it does kind of put in, I guess, better perspective, but at the same time I still got more giddy just when he was just regular ass beating up dudes in the kitchen. That I don't know, man, a simple guy. I just just like dudes getting their ass beat in normal time. But yeah, I think we've done a pretty good job going back over it, hitting everything.
Let's recap real quick here. I think the biggest differences from our first watch through is, one, you had a better experience, so you're able to pay more attention. Yep. Two, I just made it an effort to pay more attention to a lot of the dialogue and like really try to like put my brain power towards this movie.
You still definitely seem to have a better grasp of everything that's going on.
And regardless of me like going in full effort trying to understand, because this movie is one of those that you piece together what's happening kind of at the end and have to remember certain stuff. Even if you're very attentive, I think you do really need to watch the movie again if you want to understand what's fully going on. Mm-hmm. There are parts that happen earlier that don't make sense until later. And unless you have there's so much to keep up with as it's going that when you get that clarification later for what happened earlier, remembering that after having to remember just what's going on in a linear fashion.
Because I mean, you remember when we watched when we were talking about this the first time, we were trying to figure out like why did they need the painting? And now,
I thought I was going to talk about
now we were like, oh, that was easy, obviously, duh.
Right. So that was something that we talked about before. But so the painting, she was the prospector who was like.
She was the one who valued it.
She values
and
it,
then
so it
was
can be sold.
And then basically it was a fake. Therefore, he was holding it over her head because she could get in legal, like she'd go to jail
of trouble for selling something for $9 million that's worth like
fraud.
10.
Yeah, or worth like $10. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Figure that out. That's good.
Yeah, but I'm saying like that in comparison to the greater questions of this film seems so insignificant and so easy in comparison to like trying to grasp all the other stuff. So,
but you have to still follow the why is the painting thing happening, which there are quite a few conversations you have to make sure you're paying attention to.
Right.
And that's just one aspect, along with a lot of other linear ones. But something that like that clicks later from earlier is like the red string on the guy's bag at the beginning that saves him in the opera.
Yeah.
Is Neil.
Yeah.
You don't know that till the very end. But if you can remember that after just having to follow the painting to the plane crashing to going to this place and having to go in reverse, and then you remember the beginning once you see the string at the end, again, that's what I'm saying is even if you're paying attention, you have to have the best memory in the world to not have to see this again for it to make 100% sense.
At least to us.
I would be very surprised.
Yeah, same.
But
no, for real.
So I guess the biggest difference is we definitely understood more from that second viewing. And a lot of the things here's what I will say is how I approach this at the beginning, the first episode, is basically the same as to now. It just got better because the things that I was hoping held true for me. So like the explanation of why things kind of happen at the same time, understanding how like the fourth dimension, the best parallel I can give is it kind of time fooling on itself, so it's happening at the same time. How that kind of works and following the actual storyline of how they're getting to one place to another and that it didn't ruin why they were going in reverse. Because at first I was like, I kind of understand the concept of how they're doing it, but I'm not fully understanding the plot as to why they're going from place to place. But if I had listened to the plot and really understood it and goes, well, now I understand the plot, the reason they went back and how it works doesn't make sense. The plot added more evidence and gave me more to go on. And I think, again, the reason I praise this movie is it gave us a way to look at time travel in a way I've never seen before and a new way to look at time in an interesting way that although there might be a couple issues here and there, whether that's because there's more to piece together, I want to see us again try to piece together even more. But regardless of what those are, it wasn't enough to break it. It still gave me enough to appreciate the cinematography, the plot, and the acting. The weakest part, again, is a couple of the relationships between characters and how I related to them. That's it for me. How about you? What was your big takeaways?
Yeah, this movie is definitely better than my first experience for a multitude of reasons. I definitely, I think it's really good. And there's still a few little things that are kind of weird for me to try to swallow conceptually, and some actual like movie making things like you already brought up about characters that I just feel are a little weak. But outside of that, it's very solid, incredibly solid, well made,
and fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
It's a long movie. What, 235, 240 or something like that.
Something like that.
And it doesn't, I didn't feel like I wasn't like in the last 20 minutes thinking, God, is this over?
If
you know
anything,
what I mean? So
because I've seen this movie before, I knew where I could go to the bathroom, but I was trying to find the place that I could go to the bathroom in the middle of this was hard, which is good because that's like
the worst spot.
I knew I'd rather go during an action scene that didn't add substance to the story because I'm like, I saw the action, cool with that. I need to make sure I'm following the story here.
Well, I just wanted to see it in its full fidelity.
I do understand that since it's on a big screen, you wanted to see all that. So when they kind of died down and did the talking stuff, like bathroom time, I'm like, no, don't
yeah,
leave.
I know. But I was like, well, I saw that in 480. I'd rather see the big stuff in 1080p. But yeah.
And to basically kind of wrap it up for me, as much as I don't always like comparing this to another movie, Christopher Nolan movie, Inception, where you look at something in a different way and stuff like that. I definitely like Inception more. I think overall as a movie it works better, especially with the characters. You feel more for them. That helps a lot.
Oh man!
And
the funny thing, this movie.
The funny thing of this. Now you got me thinking about that. Okay, the funny thing about this is dreams. You can do whatever you want. So they did almost what you were saying of you can just kind of do whatever you want, but they did it in this way that there's a very clear goal, which means they have to do specific things, but they have the free range to do the stuff that is cool, but actually makes sense. Because, you know what I mean? So there's a lot more sense to be made as to how it works, because in dreams, we know you can do whatever you want in dreams, and we're cool with that because we know that's how dreams work. But this makes you have to almost forget about how something works and reimagine it, which is why I like it, but also makes it a lot more confusing, and there are more holes in it because of that. But I can appreciate that this is such a brand new, fresh take on quote-unquote time travel in a way I've never seen before, and didn't make me go, this is ridiculous. It makes zero sense.
This is a clever-ass movie for sure. Incredibly well, on a conceptual level, incredibly well written. I can't imagine trying to tackle this.
Trying to write this
from
bro?
a writing perspective. Oh my, yeah. So
even if there's holes, this would be
riddled
It'd be
holes.
Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
If I could write this.
This would be the worst piece of shit ever. I will if I ever write anything, it will not have time travel in it. I can just tell you right now.
Yep.
Nope, not worth doing.
So I applaud him for taking something that is so hard to do and doing it in a way that is so different without making it Swiss cheese.
Even if I'm not 100% satisfied with how it's done, but still. Very, very well done. Definitely a contender for best movie of this year.
Oh, if this doesn't win best movie this year, I'm going to lose my mind.
Dude.
Oh, yeah, Dune is coming out. Okay. As of what I've seen right now.
I think I have a preconceived notion where I think I'm going to like Dune more. It's just more my thing.
I for sure, I might like Dune more.
Yeah.
For sure. I'm not holding that. I don't like to go into movies going, well, I hope I like this better than blank movie.
No, I don't. Well, I mean, I guess I go into every movie hoping I like it more because then you're just seeing more stuff, more better, more good stuff. But yes, no, I'm not trying to think, I hope Tenet sucks and I hope Dune's good. No, I just hope they're both great, as best as they can be. Yeah.
As good as Dune is not going to lessen my love for Tenet,
right,
but maybe I like Dune more. But as of right now, movies that have come out, this is the best one so far, right?
It's gotta be.
I can't think of any other movies. That's the only other movie I could think of. If there's Dune, Black Widow, I don't know if superhero movies usually don't get the contender for Best Picture, but with the amount of movies coming out, it might. So we got I'm just saying movies that have come out that I know might be good. Dune, you got Black Widow, you got Tenet. If Sonic is in that group and then wins, I will lose all respect for Oscars.
Oh man!
Even if Dune and Black Widow are garbage, just with Tenet compared to Sonic,
if Sonic wins, and if Sonic even gets nominated,
what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do?
Think,
what are we gonna do?
No.
I thought you were about to promise the audience something like we will blank.
I was gonna say, where's Olive Garden? Because they're behind it. If Sonic gets nominated and God forbid wins, Olive Garden is in the shadows.
Olive Garden paid some top money, dude.
Must have been, bro.
Like, this is the year with least contenders. We can afford the amount of money that they want for this. Let's do it. Let's get that best picture. Because when you're here, you're family.
Jesus. Yeah,
but when you're here listening to this
evil laugh.
podcast, you're a brother. And we talk about movies, whether they're good, whether
Okay,
they're
we're
bad.
done with Tenet now. You
Because
can-
that's movies.
Hopefully, the last 2 weeks you liked either Silence of the Lambs movies or Tenet, because fuck you if you didn't, I guess.
brother. Yeah.
What are we doing next week?
All right, we'll see you next week when we do a movie, because we're going to have a long conversation about that, because I don't know.
Oh God, do we have to
What
do
are we
Mulan?
gonna do? What are we going to do?
Oh man, there's a lot of drama around Mulan. I forgot to talk about that. That was actually on my
We
list.
won't talk about it.
We're not going to talk about it. Did you hear
Not
about
today.
the drama? Oh yeah, no.
I just heard, here's what I've heard about Mulan, is
Mhm.
it's not as good. It wasn't worth $30. But I've heard other people say there's mixed reviews. So I don't know. I'm going to watch it
that's not
anyways.
even what I was talking about, but yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's all
Yeah.
I've heard.
Mm.
If there's more drama, I don't know. Haven't heard. Who cares? Let them do a Mulan movie. I hope it's good and I hope it's fun. Whatever.
Yep.
I don't want to have to feel like not that I.
It was
I
more
gonna-
like real world stuff with like China and like all that weird shit.
That's
you know
what I
what
was assuming. That's what I'm saying though.
Yeah.
Just I mean, unless it's like really racist, like or something. But like otherwise, like. Why can't we have a fun Mulan movie? Why does there gotta be drama around every movie now, especially when if it has to do with like, I don't know, something like that? I'm over it. Just give me
Wow.
just give me fun movies.
Stay out of my movies. Bad vibes.
Thanks
All right,
for
can we be done?
Yeah, thanks for listening to our second episode on Tenet. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please give us a review. Check us out on YouTube.
5
Check me out
stars.
on check us out on Instagram at That's Movies Brother. If you want to check me out on Instagram at Tyler C. Gillette. My YouTube is Tyler Gillette too. And we will talk about not Tenet next week, I promise.
Bish bash boom.
And thanks, guys.